regular meeting of the Detroit Lake City Council is called to order. And at this time, I would like to invite all of you to join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. The first order of business this evening is the approval of the minutes of the regular city council meeting held on June 13, 2017. Is there anyone in the audience or any member of the council that wishes to make any changes or corrections to the minutes as they're printed? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion for the approval of the minutes.
I believe we want to get good ways more rally off the consent.
We're doing
minutes.
Oh, minutes, I'm sorry.
I would entertain a motion for approval of the minutes.
So moved. Second.
Motion's made and seconded to approve the minutes of the regular city council meeting held June 13, 2017. Discussion on the motion. All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. The consent agenda is before the council, and all items with an asterisk are considered to be routine by the city council and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion on these items unless a council member or citizen so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the general order of business and considered separately in its normal sequence on the agenda. Is there anyone in the audience or any member of the council or staff that wants to either add or remove an item from the consent agenda?
You're on good.
Brad?
I think we should like to remove
6-0.
public works in, or after O would be giveaway for that.
And Your Honor, also under Public Works, I'd like to request that E be removed from the consent.
6E. Anyone else? Okay, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda with items 6O and 6E removed from the consent agenda. Is there a motion? So moved.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded to approve the consent agenda with 6O and 6E removed. Discussion on the motion. All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. At this time, I'm going to call on Police Chief Stephen Todd from the Detroit Lakes Police Department, who is here to make a special presentation this evening. Chief?
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. First, I'd like to have a few people come up with me here. Susan Ferguson and Mrs. Palma Blatsky, please. If I could just have you ladies stand up in front of the podium. Thanks. I'm going to read a synopsis of an event that occurred here at the end of May, and that'll give you a good understanding of what occurred, sir. On Sunday, May 28, 2017 at 12:03 p.m., Detroit Lakes police officers in Essentia St. Mary's EMS were dispatched to 1328 Lake Avenue on a medical assist for a possible heart attack. The Detroit Lakes Police Department arrived on scene and learned the following information. 79-year-old Ms. Pam Blatsky had arrived at 1328 15 to 20 minutes prior. The residence belongs to Ms. Blatsky's daughter, Jacqueline Haas. Shortly after arriving at the Haas residence, Mrs. Blatsky complained of not feeling well and she appeared short of breath. Mrs. Blatsky asked her daughter for a glass of water. Jacqueline Haas went to retrieve a glass of water while Mrs. Blatsky sat down to rest. When Jacqueline Haas came back with the water, she found her mother unresponsive and not breathing in the chair. Jacqueline Haas yelled to other family members for help and attempted to perform rescue breathing on her mother. The other family members called 911 and contacted next door neighbor Susan Ferguson, who is here to the front of me.
My angel.
Yes. Susan Ferguson ran over to the Haas home and pulled Mrs. Blatsky out of the chair and laid her flat on the floor. Ms. Ferguson initiated CPR on Mrs. Blatsky, performing chest compressions and directing Jacqueline Haas on rescue breathing. Ms. Susan Ferguson conducted approximately 2 cycles of CPR lasting a minute or so. Mrs. Ferguson recognized when Mrs. Blatsky started breathing on her own, and she monitored Mrs. Blatsky until paramedics arrived to transport her to St. Mary's Hospital. Mrs. Blatsky began speaking prior to being transported, which I just want to note is extremely rare In the 22 years that I've been in law enforcement, I haven't seen it more than one other time. Susan Ferguson is a registered cardiovascular invasive specialist at the cardiology department at Altrue Hospital, Grand Forks, North Dakota. Due to Susan Ferguson's clear thinking, proper training, and correct reaction under pressure, Ms. Palma Blotsky's life was saved. As Chief of Police, I am honored to present Susan Ferguson with the Life Saving Award from the City of Detroit Lakes and the Detroit Lakes Police Department. So. Very well earned, very proud of all of you. Can you get a picture taken? Is there anything that either of you would like to say to the?
I guess I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for my angel here. So I'll forever be grateful. I'm just glad to hear it. That's the best gift.
Thank you very much for the job well done.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Chief. Tom McSparron with West Central Initiative is here this evening, and he would like to address the council. Tom, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. Always appreciate the chance to come out here and give you this brief update. And then if you have any questions when I'm done, I'll be more than happy to try to answer them for you. There's certain points in the evolution of any organization when it makes sense to take a step back, look at current programs and services with a new perspective, and determine if there are new and innovative approaches to help meet the challenges and needs of the people that that organization serves. As we enter our 31st year of service to the people of our 9-county region, West Central Initiative is at one of those points. With new leadership often comes changes and opportunities. And with the naming of Anna Washesha as the new President CEO, it's given our staff a chance to discuss all of our programs with her and together reflect on why we do things the way we do and explore to see if there are new or better ways to approach the areas of economic development, community development, and promoting philanthropy. I want to take just a couple minutes to give you some examples of those new approaches. As our staff travels throughout the region, one of the main challenges we hear is the availability of quality childcare. Last summer, WCI made $70,000 available for forgivable childcare loans. And as you might guess, those funds were distributed quickly and impacted more than 130 slots in both home and center-based providers. Because of that success, this year, thanks to a $50,000 grant from DEED and an additional $51,000 from WCI, 31 more of those forgivable loans have been made to providers all across the region. Workforce training has been a part of WCI's programming for many years. This year, in response to what we were hearing from manufacturers, the newly named Best Force program is focusing on manufacturers with employees of 150, businesses with 150 employees or less. This approach makes training opportunities available to many more workers and will help them make them more efficient and the businesses more profitable. In another new area for WCI, we've launched a website to help businesses develop plans that prepare them for potential disasters. StayOpenForBusiness.org includes videos of businesses that survive disasters such as floods, tornadoes, lightning strikes, and burst pipes. The website intends to motivate, refine, and improve a disaster recovery plan. And since 25% of businesses that close because of a disaster never reopen their doors, this is an important effort. This site is made available because of WCI's involvement with the Philanthropic Preparedness, Resiliency, and Emergency Partnership, or PPREP. WCI staff worked with 3 more communities and encouraged them to take a new way to look at new ways to ensure the safety of their children as they arrive and leave from their local schools. Safe Routes to Schools plans were then completed in those communities, bringing the total to 15 throughout the region. The philanthropy team has developed and has begun distributing a new quarterly electronic newsletter to financial advisors. The aim of the newsletter is to offer suggestions to those advisors who can then pass on that information to their clients who want to leave a legacy in their community and in our region. Charitable giving tools and local examples of families who have stepped forward and made a difference through their gifts will be highlighted in each issue. WCI's staff has reevaluated and expanded our efforts in Live Wide Open, an online marketing campaign to help brand our region, showcasing the opportunities in careers, lifestyles, and family-friendly activities while living close to family and friends and the beautiful lakes and landscapes that we offer. The website hosts testimonials from residents stating why they've chosen to live and work in West Central Minnesota. And if you have a story that you'd like to share or know of someone whose story would add to these pages, please contact Sherry, our
Did you tell?
I'm always wondering what you're doing. I'm always wondering what you're
This regular meeting of the Detroit Lake City Council is called to order. And at this time, I would like to invite all of you to join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. The first order of business this evening is the approval of the minutes of the regular city council meeting held on June 13, 2017. Is there anyone in the audience or any member of the council that wishes to make any changes or corrections to the minutes as they're printed? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion for the approval of the minutes.
I believe you want to say good ways or rally off the.
We're doing.
We're doing minutes.
Oh, minutes, I'm sorry.
I would entertain a motion for approval of the minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded to approve the minutes of the regular city council meeting held June 13, 2017. Discussion on the motion. All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. The consent agenda is before the council, and all items with an asterisk are considered to be routine by the city council and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member or citizen so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the general order of business and considered separately in its normal sequence on the agenda. Is there anyone in the audience or any member of the council or staff that wants to either add or remove an item from the consent agenda?
You're on, Brad.
Brad?
I think we did like to remove,
6-0.
under Public Works and, or after, O, would be given away, for,
And Your Honor, also under Public Works, I'd like to request that E be removed from the consent.
6E. Anyone else? Okay, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda with items 6O and 6E removed from the consent agenda. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded to approve the consent agenda with 6O and 6E removed. Discussion on the motion. All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. At this time, I'm going to call on Police Chief Stephen Todd from the Detroit Lakes Police Department, who is here to make a special presentation this evening. Chief?
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. First, I'd like to have a few people come up with me here. Susan Ferguson and Mrs. Palma Pulaski, please. If I could just have you ladies stand up in front of the podium. Thanks. I'm going to read a synopsis of an event that occurred here at the end of May, and that'll give you a good understanding of what occurred, sir. On Sunday, May 28, 2017, at 12:03 p.m., Detroit Lakes police officers and Essentia St. Mary's EMS were dispatched to 1328 Lake Avenue on a medical assist for a possible heart attack. The Detroit Lakes Police Department arrived on scene and learned the following information. 79-year-old Ms. Pam Blotsky had arrived at 1328 15 to 20 minutes prior. The residence belongs to Ms. Blotsky's daughter, Jacqueline Haas. Shortly after arriving at the Haas residence, Mrs. Blotsky complained of not feeling well and she appeared short of breath. Mrs. Blotsky asked her daughter for a glass of water. Jacqueline Haas went to retrieve a glass of water while Mrs. Blotsky sat down to rest. When Jacqueline Haas came back with the water, she found her mother unresponsive and not breathing in the chair. Jacqueline Haas yelled to other family members for help and attempted to perform rescue breathing on her mother. The other family members called 911 and contacted next-door neighbor Susan Ferguson, who is here to the front of me.
My angel.
Yes. Susan Ferguson ran over to the Haas home and pulled Mrs. Blotsky out of the chair and laid her flat on the floor. Ms. Ferguson initiated CPR on Mrs. Blotsky, performing chest compressions and directing Jacqueline Haas on rescue breathing. Ms. Susan Ferguson conducted approximately 2 cycles of CPR lasting a minute or so. Mrs. Ferguson recognized when Mrs. Blotsky started breathing on her own, and she monitored Mrs. Blotsky until paramedics arrived to transport her to St. Mary's Hospital. Mrs. Blotsky began speaking prior to being transported, which I just want to note is extremely rare. In the 22 years that I've been in law enforcement, I haven't seen it more than one other time. Susan Ferguson is a registered cardiovascular invasive specialist at the cardiology department at Altrue Hospital, Grand Forks, North Dakota. Due to Susan Ferguson's clear thinking, proper training, and correct reaction under pressure, Ms. Palma Blotsky's life was saved. As Chief of Police, I am honored to present Susan Ferguson with the Life Saving Award from the City of Detroit Lakes and the Detroit Lakes Police Department. So. Very well learned, very proud of all of you. Can you get a picture taken? Is there anything that either of you would like to say to the?
I guess I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for my angel here. So I'll forever be grateful. I'm just glad to do it. That's the best gift.
Thank you very much for the job well done.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Chief. Tom McSparron with West Central Initiative is here this evening, and he would like to address the council. Tom, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. Always appreciate the chance to come out here and give you this brief update. And then if you have any questions when I'm done, I'll be more than happy to try to answer them for you. There's certain points in the evolution of any organization when it makes sense to take a step back, look at current programs and services with a new perspective, and determine if there are new and innovative approaches to help meet the challenges and needs of the people that organization serves. As we enter our 31st year of service to the people of our 9-county region, West Central Initiative is at one of those points. With new leadership often comes changes and opportunities. And with the naming of Anna Washesha as the new President CEO, it's given our staff a chance to discuss all of our programs with her and together reflect on why we do things the way we do and explore to see if there are new or better ways to approach the areas of economic development, community development, and promoting philanthropy. I want to take just a couple minutes to give you some examples of those new approaches. As our staff travels throughout the region, one of the main challenges we hear is the availability of quality childcare. Last summer, WCI made $70,000 available for forgivable childcare loans. And as you might guess, those funds were distributed quickly and impacted more than 130 slots in both home and center-based providers. Because of that success, this year, thanks to a $50,000 grant from DEED and an additional $51,000 from WCI, 31 more of those forgivable loans have been made to providers all across the region. Workforce training has been a part of WCI's programming for many years. This year, in response to what we were hearing from manufacturers, the newly named Best Force program is focusing on manufacturers with employees of 150, businesses with 150 employees or less. This approach makes training opportunities available to many more workers and will help them make them more efficient and the businesses more profitable. In another new area for WCI, we've launched a website to help businesses develop plans that prepare them for potential disasters. StayOpenForBusiness.org includes videos of businesses that survive disasters such as floods, tornadoes, lightning strikes, and burst pipes. The website intends to motivate, refine, and improve a disaster recovery plan. And since 25% of businesses that close because of a disaster never reopen their doors, this is an important effort. This site is made available because of WCI's involvement with the Philanthropic Preparedness, Resiliency, and Emergency Partnership, or PPREP. WCI staff worked with 3 more communities and encouraged them to take a look at new ways to ensure the safety of their children as they arrive and leave from their local schools. Safe Routes to Schools plans were then completed in those communities, bringing the total to 15 throughout the region. The philanthropy team has developed and has begun distributing a new quarterly electronic newsletter to financial advisors. The aim of the newsletter is to offer suggestions to those advisors who can then pass on that information to their clients who want to leave a legacy in their community and in our region. Charitable giving tools and local examples of families who have stepped forward and made a difference through their gifts will be highlighted in each issue. WCI's staff has reevaluated and expanded our efforts in Live Wide Open, an online marketing campaign to help brand our region, showcasing the opportunities in careers, lifestyles, and family-friendly activities while living close to family and friends and the beautiful lakes and landscapes that we offer. The website hosts testimonials from residents stating why they've chosen to live and work in West Central Minnesota. And if you have a story that you'd like to share or know of someone whose story would add to these pages, please contact Sherry, our communications director at the WCI offices. We know that our past successes, our new programs, and the impact that we continue to have in our region would not be possible without the support we receive from the cities, counties, corporations, and individuals who share in our vision and our mission. That support allows us to continue to address the critical needs in economic and community development. We thank you for the confidence that you have shown through your past support, and we are proud to call the City of Detroit Lakes a partner in each of those efforts. As always, our pledge to you is to continue the careful stewardship of each gift and every dollar. And before I open it up for questions, I want to extend, or in some cases re-extend, an invitation. This coming Thursday, the day after tomorrow, we are going to be hosting a Welcome Anna Back to West Central Minnesota event. It will be held at the Bigwood Event Center right across from our offices in Fergus Falls from 4 to 6:30. RSVPs are not required. However, to make sure that our staff orders enough food for everybody, if you give us a call, we'd really appreciate it. And with that, I will try to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions from the council or anyone in the audience for Tom? Okay, thank you so much, Tom. It's always a pleasure to see you, and enjoy your evening.
Thank you very much.
coming.
Thanks for the time.
Elizabeth Wapel is here from Flaherty and Wood, and she would also like to address the council this evening. Welcome. Good to
Thank
see you,
you.
Elizabeth.
Is there PowerPoint? We may or may not. Oh, there it is. Okay, just is there a clicker or something? Oh, thank you. I want to thank you all for allowing me to speak here. I think I've met most of you, but my name is Elizabeth Wapel, and I'm one of the attorney lobbyists with the Coalition of Greater Minnesota Cities. I know you've got a full agenda, so I'll try to get through this really quickly, but you know, the CGMC continues to grow. We're, I think, over 90 members now across the state working on issues that really unite our cities. Going into this legislative session, you know, we had another challenge. Once again, the majorities flipped. We were also facing a backlog. I think you all realize that the bonding bill failed last year. That was very important for this year. We had no tax bill and lacked a transportation bill. That plus a state budget year meant there was a lot to do this legislative session. Now, the session started with a $1.65 million surplus, but what that meant is that there was a lot of arguments over what we do with that surplus. On the one side, the GOP favored using that for tax cuts and transportation funding, putting less money into state government agencies, whereas the governor wanted to use it for additional education spending and finding new dollars for transportation elsewhere. This is really what we saw as the main sort of argument throughout the session. Now, big goals for us, there are a lot of them that are listed here in the report, you know, increasing LGA, trying to get a good-sized bonding bill, trying to do some environmental regulatory reform, trying to make sure we had a good transportation package, and also pass some economic development priorities. So, not a small list, but I think we had moderate success on most of it. Just with respect to the LGA, there was a modest increase to LGA. We'd asked for $45 million. The final bill included a $15 million increase, so we're going to continue pushing on that. If you look at the charts, you'll notice that Detroit Lakes remains relatively flat. It has to do, we've been talking with Kelsey about this, it has to do with the way your tax base is structured. So our analyst, Chris Henjum, has actually been working with Representative Mark Horn and House Research to determine if there's some way that the formula could be tweaked to address sort of the particulars of your situation and in a couple other cities that are similarly situated. It kind of has to do mainly with the seasonal imbalance here. But we are looking at that issue. I know Chris has been working with House Research on that. You know, another big thing that we've been pushing for is a bonding bill. You know, it failed at the last minute. I think I've been working with the city on the Heartland Trail, and I think we feel the pain of that on many levels, but we're glad to see, and we did get a bonding bill this year. You know, it took a while. The Senate really tried to move on it at the beginning. The House waited until May to unveil the bill, but there was a bill that passed at the very last minute. It was like 2 a.m. on a Friday morning. I was there. It was quite late, but about $1 billion in bonding, $117 million for water infrastructure. We would have liked to have seen more, but we were pleased that there were policy changes that allow cities like Detroit Lakes to get some of the changes that they need to make sure that they can fully fund their projects. We were excited to see $12 million for the BDPI, which is a program most of our cities have taken advantage of. We helped create a number of years ago, and that continues to be funded. We were very happy with that. Transportation. You know, this is an area everybody wants to do something about. They're very, you know, people are very motivated to do it, but the big problem is there's a significant divide at the legislature on this. The governor wants new revenue, the GOP wanted to spend the surplus and bond for the new roads. A lot of us were a little surprised when early on in the session, the governor conceded early that there would be no revenue, and that really kind of drove the conversation for the rest of the session. We introduced a bill for city streets of all sizes. You know, there is a program there for cities under 5,000, but we want to help cities like Detroit Lakes, Fergus Falls, our largest cities, make sure that you're also covered. We also introduced a bill on corridors of commerce, and we also raised the alarm over significant general fund spending on transportation. Ultimately, you know, there was a transportation bill, but a lot of it comes with money from the general fund. Some of it was one-time highway construction bonds, $300 million in bonding for corridors of commerce, and $8 million for 2 years for cities under 5,000, with nothing for cities over 5,000. So there was a transportation bill. There was money put in there. We are very concerned, however, about the long-term sustainability. We also spent quite a bit of time, and me personally, I spent a lot of my time on the legislature, really trying to make some reforms around the environmental regulatory area. Tried to get independent review, tried to prohibit the MPCA from implementing standards based on documents that should not have, and also allowing cities more time to review draft permits and the designation of impaired waters. We got through multiple hearings on this. Myself and Bradley Peterson, who many of you know from my office, actually spent 13 different meetings with the MPCA commissioner in the governor's office trying to negotiate some language. In the end, they wouldn't budge. So our ambitious regulatory reform goals were narrowed down to some additional time that I think will help our cities, having to do with the draft permits and the impaired waters. We're able to make some changes there. Economic development priorities, we continue to work on trying to do something about workforce housing. There was some amount of money increased for grants, increases to the job creation fund, and more money for broadband. We were also very happy to see that there's a new exemption for state and commercial industrial property for up to $100,000. You know, there was floated a couple years back trying to get rid of that whole statewide commercial property tax. The problem with that is it would create a significant, budget hole. We had suggested, limiting it to about $100,000 because that's really what's helpful for Greater Minnesota. And that was what happened. This, you can kind of see what happens, with an average city average property tax exemption for most, like what would happen in Detroit Lakes under this new bill. There's statewide property tax should go down. Something we are worried about, however, is really what's going to happen going forward. The high cost of the tax and transportation bills could really cause a problem for deficits in the future. The state budget does not leave much room for error in the event of a downturn. And I think when this slide was created, I sent it to Kelsey on Friday. We were seeing that current tax collections were trending below forecast. I was just reading the paper this morning, and yet another month is showing that tax collections are down. Now, we still have a budget reserve, but it is very concerning about those tax collections going down like that, because one of the things that we have seen year in and year out is when we start facing a deficit, they really go after the money that is provided to local governments, such as the local government aid. This is what the state budget balance looked like. The challenge that we're running into is they're really not including inflation in a lot of the projections. So, everybody's like, oh, look, we have a $1.65 billion surplus. But when you add in inflation, it's really not that large. Taxes, transportation, and HHS are going to grow quickly over time. You can kind of see where those numbers are moving. And this is what we could be looking at, unless the revenues were to take a significant increase, is some structural deficits, as early as the end of this budget session. We are very concerned, and we are going to continue to work on this. You was a little surprised on some of the things that the governor allowed to go through in the tax bill, but we are very concerned that unless we see a significant uptick in our economy, we are going to be facing a structural deficit. Now, again, like I said, we're already seeing actual revenue receipts worse than forecast, and the June numbers show a similar trend. So, to wrap it up, what did we learn from this session? That it is possible to move forward on some of our goals with a divided legislature that we had, with the governor over here and the legislature over there. It did require a lot more work. It was also, very imperative that having our city leaders, our city council people, staff really involved was really instrumental in moving the ball forward. I mean, there's a number of specific, legislators that were very affected by hearing from their city councils, and that's why, you working with us really helps move the ball on things. Challenges for next session. We're going to see a shorter session. We are hoping, it is actually the actual bonding year next year. We're really hoping they're going to get back on track, and that is going to be something pushing. I'm glad to see that Detroit Lakes was able to get, hopefully, the funding you need for your wastewater treatment plant in this past year's bonding bill. But there's a lot of other projects out there, a lot of other cities needing wastewater money, other things we need to get done. Challenges is nothing needs to happen in 2018. They don't need to do a bonding bill. We want them to. We are also worried, like I said, about a deficit. We've had a supplemental budget the last few even number of years, but that's been because of a surplus. We are worried that it might go the other way. Also, it's an election year, and that means it will complicate the politics of the session. So, upcoming events. I understand that, unfortunately, our summer conference falls at the same time as WeFest, so I guess we'll have to give you a pass, but if you decide not to go to WeFest, please truck on down the road to Fergus Falls. It should be a great event. If you can't, come over to the fall conference in November or to the Legislative Action Day in March. Really want to thank you. Sorry that I kind of sped through those, but again, given your agenda, I thought it was appropriate. We really appreciate, how active Detroit Lakes has been throughout the years. It's always a pleasure to work with you, and members like you are what make us strong and able to achieve what we need to at the legislature. So thank you. Any questions?
Questions, anyone for Elizabeth?
No, but just want to say thank you for your group's efforts for lobbying, because your hard work, you're part of the reason we were able to get that money for our Wisconsin treatment plant.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome.
Thanks for coming, Elizabeth.
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Just, Mayor, if I could put a plug into some of the newer council members, if you have a chance, especially since it's New Fest, but even if you can drive down for one of the sessions in Fergus Falls, they get great, my experience is usually they have good sessions, and it's a good chance to network with other city officials.
Absolutely. At this time, I'll adjourn the regular city council meeting, and I'll call to order a public hearing to receive public comments for the proposed vacation of right-of-way at Boulder Circle. And to lead off, I think I'll call on city staff. Larry, do you want to take this one?
Sure.
Okay.
We have had a request from a developer who would like to develop a 55-unit apartment building in the Stonebrook addition. And they are requesting the vacation of a platted street in that addition that has not been constructed yet. And it certainly appears to staff that if we can avoid constructing a cul-de-sac and having to maintain and plow that, it seems to make good sense. The development proposal is a good one, and I would recommend approval of the vacation of Boulder Circle. The developer is here to answer any questions that you have and discuss his proposal in depth, and I'm sure there are neighbors here to address this issue as well.
Okay, before I open it up for comments, does anyone have any questions about what the proposal is? Any questions about what's being proposed here? Do you have a question, Ben?
Yes, I got some comments to make.
You know what? I just wanted to know if there was any
Is there
questions,
any
Ben.
questions, Ben? Then did you have a question? Bill, give me time to do that.
I don't have particular questions. I do have a statement of concern concerning this.
Can you just hold on 1 second, Ben?
Sure.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions? If you don't have any questions, then I'll open it up for comments.
Can we just have a developer come up and talk about the development?
We can do that as well, yeah. When we come to the podium, if you would state your name and address in your case, I guess we don't need your address, but.
Sure, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Hi, I'm Eric Gunderson. I'm one of the developers and owners of Stonebrook Apartments. Maybe I'll just talk through the general flow. We have 3 buildings, 2 have been built, and we're talking about the 3rd one tonight. But going into the first building, it was 33 apartments, 25 open parking spots, 59 garage spots. At that time, we poured the other half of the parking lot. We didn't have any issues or concerns about parking, green space, or anything of that sort. We did the second building. The second building unit mix changed quite a bit. We took away 3-bedroom units, and the market was telling us they wanted more 1-bedrooms and even efficiencies. With that, we changed some of our garage structures to add more double garages. The first building, any 1-bedroom had a single stall garage. On the second building, we gave those 4 or 5 tenants the option of changing from a single to a double, addressing what we thought could be an issue of parking, and people have storage issues and whatnot. So what we've been hearing and working with our people on the ground, and one of those would be Jean Matson, and she's been kind of our eyes and ears on the ground, and not working only with her, but with our management and just driving by and being there ourselves. Her comments are, she moved into the first Stonebrook building as soon as it opened, and my wife and I signed that lease agreement with Jean. She's still there. She says the apartments are beautiful and she feels fortunate to live there. The building's filled quite rapidly, and the tenants are impressed with the facility. It's hard to find apartments with upscale stainless steel appliances, great floor plans, etc. These apartments have attracted physicians, nurse practitioners, teachers, attorneys, and other professionals. The buildings are very quiet. The concerns of the tenants include more off-street parking, and I've heard 2 neighbors that have called. I've talked to them on the phone, so we knew that was an issue going into our 3rd building. A dog park, designated smoking area, walking trail, playground, and other outdoor areas, green space. So she says it would be marvelous for the new plan to incorporate these things, and that's basically her summation of her experience, and she gives me the most feedback, so that's why I asked her if she could write down and kind of vocalize to the council here. So going into the open area here to the west, we again felt the pressure of 1-bedrooms and efficiencies. So the unit mix on the 55 proposed unit facility is 26 1-bedroom and 9 efficiencies. Each one of those will come with a double stall garage, and these garages are all included with the rent, so there's no extra charge. Everyone gets a garage whether they want one or not. It's just assigned to them up front. Also with that 55 unit proposed building, our 3rd phase, we have 62 open parking spots, and we did 14 overflow parking spots for Stonebrook 1 and 2, and that's the part that first connects, which would be kind of on that corner there, that west-south corner. So we'd have that continuity where they'd be able to park in the overflow, still walk on concrete or parking lot to their apartments. Just some numbers as I went over them. Of the 123 as completed total apartments, we'd have 126 open parking spots, 229 garage spots. So we'd have 355 total parking spots to accommodate 123 apartments. And keep in mind, the unit mix has gone to more 1-bedrooms and efficiencies, which we think is going to help alleviate the pressure on the 3rd building. If you're looking at the site plan, we do have these items. We have a dog park planned, and that's been a big request. We do have a children's playground. One of the apartments on the bottom floor will be the community room. And that'd be right by the playground corner. And with that community room would be free use to all of our tenants in buildings 1, 2, and 3. Some exercise equipment, some limited kitchen and that type of facilities if they want to have a gathering for family or birthday or whatnot. And then the patio would kind of tie in and overlook the playground. The other thing, which I think is neat, is the walking trail. So we'd be able to have a walking path with a bench and a rest area and garbage and whatnot. And that's about 3/8 of a mile, I believe. So 3 times around that, you have your mile walk in. And although I don't like it, and I don't like smoking in the building or around it, we do have a designated smoking area, and it's right off the existing garage up north on the west side. It actually kind of looks the same as where the garbage container is. Kind of looks like the same little square design. So we've taken all of our input, not only from neighbors, but our current tenants, and just getting a feel for being on the ground. I'm kind of the managing owner, so the management goes through my company, so I'm the one that gets the phone calls and hears things on a daily basis. that's why I'm kind of up here. I have the best feel for what's been requested or demanded. So we've tried to take everything and put it in one, and that's where we're at today.
Anyone in the council have questions for Eric or in the audience?
I have a question. Yesterday when we discussed this, we didn't really have much of a feel for the parking situation. I know that's the major concern of the neighbors. So right now, I guess we should maybe address the current ordinance right now, Larry, is it 2 spots per?
The current ordinance requires 1.5 spaces per unit.
Okay. And we are significantly over that with this
We're
plan?
proposing close to 3 units per unit on the new plan.
Three parking spots.
3 parking spots per unit, what did I say?
3 units per unit.
That's okay. So they're gonna be significantly over what the requirement is, which should alleviate some of the on-street parking, which is a major concern of the neighbors, which I'm sure they would be relieved about. And not only that, this parking lot here to the north, I believe it is, actually is accessible from the existing apartments, correct?
Yeah, that's the idea. If we can vacate that road, if we can't, then that leaves us in a little bind for overflow parking with the first 1 and 2 Stonebrook buildings.
So if ownership were to change or whatever else, then obviously there's no way that you would barricade that off so other apartments couldn't have use of that.
Yeah, ownership will not change. This will be 3 parcels, same ownership group.
Well, the only trouble is though, is the existing neighborhood down there is seeing cars overflow on the side streets on a regular basis, and you think you've got enough parking, but you don't because of your husband and wife. Each of you has a car. If one of them has a work truck or a service truck, there's another truck. So some apartments could have as many as 3 or 4 vehicles, and you put in the boat, a trailer, whatever it is, and then you have your garages that you say everybody has a garage, but they're full of household goods. There isn't nearly enough parking, and that's what the neighborhood is concerned about. And even though you say it looks like a lot of parking, it really isn't. Unless you know these people only have so many cars, and so it overflows. And right now, you have 2 apartment houses, and you're proposing a 55-unit apartment. There isn't enough space for all the cars that have to go into there. And then you thought putting in, a place for a park and all this watch. You don't have room for that in there. You're trying to squeeze everything in, and if everybody comes in with these cars and their boats.
Well, I partially disagree with that.
And
You're giving me a scenario
but
where
let me finish here. If you vacate that road, it makes it even worse, more so on it. And I'm looking here at the plat. When these people originally bought out there, granted it was R3, but Mr. Renner owned the property out there. And you look at their plat, they were told that this was going to be a mixed-use neighborhood with apartments, duplexes, fourplexes, and single-family housing. And where you're proposing to take away that particular turnaround road, that they want to have that, taken away tonight, that's what's going to be single-family housing. You can see how it was all platted. Those are all platted for single-family homes. So now the people went in and they built single-family homes. We bought a lot of senior people out there, duplexes, fourplexes, and you put that in there. Now they thought they were going to be a nice mixed-family neighborhood. Now we've got a neighborhood because along with yours, we also have Pelican Heights. And they also have the same problem now with parking because it's the same thing as a husband and wife. They each have their own vehicle. They've got service cars, pickups, boats, trailers, whatever. There's not nearly enough parking, and that's what these people are concerned about, is over parking. And quite frankly, they would like to see this project cut down to half. And one of the big concerns is that you didn't have to go to the planning commission because you said you got enough room. Well, I question whether or not you got enough room for the parking spots. And I would like to see this go back through the planning commission and have them look at the proper parking that's going to really be needed for this particular area, because right now in Detroit Lakes, there isn't a neighborhood that has more density apartments than what this area is behind the vocational school. And it isn't fair for these people to have a neighborhood like that, and nobody here would want to have what they've got in their backyards, and
Well, Ron, that's an extreme example of 4 or 5 cars per family, but we have individuals that have 1 car too. There's efficiencies, young professionals, they have a suitcase and a car. So we think that balances out somewhat, and we over-corrected. If we're under on the first 2, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to over-correct that in the 3rd facility. That's what all I can tell you.
I was there this morning at 11 o'clock with Ben Weekly, 12 cars, and that's in the morning, everybody went to work. And we parked there, and you come there at night, and you get there after dark at night, and those streets are full of cars. And part of it is that there isn't room in those lots, and some of those rigs are oversized, and so that's what these people have to look at every night, every day. They drive by that. It's like you've got a graduation party at your house 365 days a year. Think about that. Not many people want to be in that situation.
Okay, so we probably should open it up for comments here, because you've kind of completed your statement.
Yeah, I'll be available
Okay.
for comments or
And
questions.
if there's questions, you're going to be stick around.
Yep.
Is there anyone that wants to make additional comments at this time? I know, Ben, you did.
This is the first time that I've seen this particular plan. I've seen other plans. But this one concerns me even greater because the parking that they have there on Canyon Boulevard looks like it's being built right into 2 of the lots that we were assured would be single-family residents and have covenants on them. So apparently that is being ignored. I'll just get to what I have prepared here so I don't forget things, but I gave you a handout of what my remarks are. My name is Ben Weekly, and I would like to voice my concern about the vacation of Boulder Circle. The history of this and the surrounding property in question has been one of deep disappointment to the residents who have spent their life savings to create what appeared at the time to be a mixed residential neighborhood. This area was platted out with the cooperation of the city into individual lots with the help of city engineers and signed off on by city government. Even though the area is zoned R3, we were told by the developer that this area would be a mix of single-family, twin homes, townhomes, and an apartment complex on the corner of Stone Creek Drive and the frontage road. Take a look at the plat map that shows that. About 4 years ago, the first of 2 33-unit apartments was built onto the Stonebrook Villa lots. The city gave the Stonebrook Apartment Corporation a building code variance to accomplish this. The first people to be negatively affected were the residents of Stonebrook Villa townhomes. After the completion of the second 33-unit apartment, the street in front of their homes is now filled daily with cars, trucks, and trailers. On a daily basis, 14 to 23 vehicles line their street because the parking lot for these apartments is not adequately sized. Oh yes, it apparently meets the minimum legal code requirements, but doesn't come anywhere as close to being adequate. The garages at many of these apartments are filled with storage, and the cars and trucks overflow onto the street. The townhome people are elderly, and many have expressed their feelings of hopelessness in being able to have anything done about it. Today, the Stonebrook Apartment Corporation out of Fargo, North Dakota is planning to build yet another apartment building. This time, I'm told, 55-unit complex. The problem is they do not have enough land to do it. They want the council to vacate the Boulder Circle Road area, comprised of almost an acre of land. If the city gives this land away, it will be Christmas in July for them. And the rug will be pulled out from under the local residents. We want to keep Boulder Circle. So who would benefit by vacating this land and giving it to the Stonebrook Apartment Corporation? No neighboring property owners would, absolutely none. Only the Stonebrook Apartments would profit. If this goes forward, it would bring the total number of apartments in this one location to 121. We need to get balance. We need to get back to a balance with respect to housing in our area. There are many other alternative ways to develop this area. The 11 lots in this area that the developers own can still be developed into residential homes or townhomes. The area residents would applaud this. Or perhaps significantly downsizing the number of apartments to fit into this area. And why hasn't the Planning Commission been involved in the matter? As a side note, I don't see a recommendation from them. This is a huge departure from what was originally planned and proposed to us by the city and the developer. Please don't make a bad situation even worse solely for the profit of the Stonebrook Apartments. Now is the time to plan. The city has a community development director on staff. The city has a planning commission. We need them to meet with us at our neighborhood, to hear and see our concerns, and to come up with an acceptable plan that would be satisfactory to all parties. Please slow down on this decision and ask for more information and input. Please send this back to the Planning Commission for further study. What I see up there is nightmare for me. Right across the street from my residential home is going to be in and out traffic all day long, and there will be cars parked on both sides of Canyon Boulevard and up Stone Creek Drive. And if the developers think there won't, I'll bet my house to their apartment that there will be. So I think we need to slow down, take a look at this. We don't necessarily need to have all the apartments in town right over in our area. Just north of us, in the Bristol addition, 3 apartments. In our area alone, 3 of them. Now another big one. So there are other ways to do this. I think back in 2006, this area was planned out. What's the good of planning when you just take the plan away? So let's get back to the drawing board on this and get input from people sitting down on both sides of the table, not just somebody in the office with the developer. We would appreciate that very much. Thank you, Kelsey, for sending out that information to us so we could be here.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak to the issue of the proposed vacation right away of Boulder Circle? And if you would, just state your name and address for the minutes, please.
Yes, my name is, excuse me, my name is Cleo Johnson, and I live at 328 Canyon Boulevard.
Okay.
And I would like to say that it would be nice for each of the people affected to have had copies of this, even though it's not been passed yet. It would be nice for us to have had it, to see it, to come here prepared to dispute and to raise our concerns. And I think the developers, maybe they haven't heard many complaints. I've never seen a phone number where we could reach him. I think there are a number of us that live in that area that would have some concerns and complaints and would like to have talked and expressed what is happening here. If the manager hasn't gotten any, it's because who do you go to? We feel like the city is in charge and we are just taxpayers but not really cared much about. We do feel like you have kind of left us having bought a home and thinking we were going to have a nice neighborhood. So it is a disappointment. And what has been done for us already has not helped us. We have been forgotten. And I don't know who all to blame, but it hasn't been a nice situation to live there. We are not against apartments, but we are against being inundated with vehicles and people and walkers and dogs and all the rest. So I hope you can see our point, maybe spend a little time considering it and reducing it. You know, we've noticed the gravel trucks hauling gravel, sand, I don't know, it's not quite 24 hours a day, but you should drive out there and see what they have been putting in that area. Is that because they already think they have gotten your permission to develop this and to give away that land? I mean, it's kind of foolish to think that all of this money has been spent by trucks hauling gravel and sand in, and if they're not going to have any result from that. I would appreciate it if all of you members would drive out into our area and see what it looks like. Sunday morning, there were over 27 cars, 25 cars on each side of the street. Thank you if you have chance. Please do that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak? Again, sir, if you'd state your name and address for our minutes, please.
This is Albert Keel. I live at 1119 Riverview Road. I'm right on the north side of this. In fact, I'm up to the right-of-way, the city right-of-way there. And what I wanted to talk about, they've already mentioned it. I went out about a week ago, about 7 in the morning, I went to get a haircut. And I went by on Pelican River Road there, going out to the road. And I got about down, and there was cars parked all on one side, cars parked on the other side, a car coming, and I was going the other way. That makes it pretty tight to go through there. But then what happens just about that time? Somebody in the parked car there opened their door in the car. Well, I slammed on the brakes. That could have been an accident. Some little kid could be walking across that road. Don't you feel sorry for that kid? Can't you do something? Can't you put signs up there, no parking? And if they don't have a place to park their car, they better use the rest of that lot there for parking then. They gotta get them cars off of that road. They've got to. Some little kid is gonna die. Or some lady is gonna be taking her kid in a baby buggy by there. And what's gonna happen? Some elderly lady is gonna be walking her man. They ain't got no place to walk. Where we live on the street there, Riverview Road, it's nice because they go by at the baby buggies, they walk, they do all that. You can't walk down here. I beg you to put up no parking signs and make them cars park back there where this is going to be built. I beg you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else that wishes to speak to the issue of the vacation of right-of-way of Boulder Circle?
I'm Lynn Honrood. I live at 223 Stone Creek Drive. And our concern is just driving out of our driveway when we have to go up to the grocery store. There are children riding bikes, skateboards, and just as the gentleman said, I really want to raise the safety issue because there are people constantly, and with the cars parked, you can't always see them. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else who wishes to speak to the issue?
I'd like to bring up one other thing. Roger Johnson sitting back there, he's been mowing a good share of that Stony Brook property in Cleo too, because the weeds are high in the thistles, and he's got a yard that's like a garden. And in order to keep his yard looking nice, he's mowing their property. I don't know, they should be sending him a check every week, because he mows it on a regular basis. And that's what it's been like to have a neighbor like they got in Stony Brook. It is not good, and nobody here, like I said at the council, would want it in their neighborhood. It's a bad deal.
Any other comments? Otherwise, I'm going to close the public hearing. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Alice Keel, and I live at 1119 Riverview Road. Our backyard is in the corner of the garages of the second apartments that went up. Right in that corner, there are thistles, weeds. 2 weeks ago, my husband and I got out and cut them down because they're all in bloom. There's beer cans down there, there's plastic laying there that's been there from construction. It's a garbage hole. Kids play there, they come up there, they run down the back alley, they jump down over the fence there. I have a neighbor down the road on the same side that's concerned that these little kids are gonna get hurt. When the first apartments were put up, they put a fence between them so the kids can't go there. There has not been a fence put here. I think that should be looked at. I would like some of you to go out and look at that corner. It's a garbage hole. Nobody attends to it. Nobody takes care of it. It's a mess. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments? If not, that public hearing is closed, and I will open it up for discussion by the council and questions or additional comments from the council. Anyone? Yep.
Why hasn't this gone to the planning commission? I mean, how did this just come out?
Larry, you want to
I can speak to that. The area is zoned R3, so it's already zoned for multifamily residential development. The proposal that they're putting forth, if the road is vacated, will meet all of the requirements that are currently in place. So when a development comes in that meets all of the current requirements that are in place, it doesn't have to go before anybody for any kind of approval. For example, if a business comes in and wants to locate in the B1 district and meets all of the setback and building and parking requirements, they just need to apply for a building permit and it's granted based on the rules that are in place. So that would be the situation here. And tonight, the city council is being asked to consider the vacation of a road that's currently not built and that doesn't exist. It's only on a plat. And we have to decide whether or not it's in the public interest to either keep that for possible construction of the road in the future or to vacate it and allow the development to occur that's being proposed. So that's what we're looking at.
Does the same developer own all of this, or how it's platted?
They own the rest of the land around it, and so when we vacate a road, what happens by law is that half of the road up to the middle goes to the owners on each side of the property.
And why hasn't that ever been developed for?
There was never
Wait,
a
it's
request,
developed in the
there was
other-
never a request by the developer to have the road constructed.
further questions or comments from the council?
Well, the other day, Larry, you said that maybe we have to look at reviewing this ordinance for parking because some of these lots for these apartment houses aren't enough. And I know we may have an existing ordinance.
I don't disagree with you at all, but until we do that, we have to follow
Well,
what's in place.
I know,
And
but
they're not even suggesting that. They are proposing to provide 3 spaces per unit rather than the required 1.5.
But they're saying that the neighborhood is telling us that that's not even enough because the existing 2 apartments they have isn't enough, and that's why they've got all these people
Well,
parked on the
I
streets.
still stand by what I said the other day. We need to revisit that and change that number. But until we do, if somebody comes in with a proposal that meets the requirements of our ordinance, we have to approve it.
But can't we bring this to the planning commission, have them look at this though? Just because of what we're having with problems out there? Why make a problem even worse than what we have right now out there? Because right
that's
now,
what your ordinance requires, and until you change it, we can't do that.
Yes, ma'am.
I have a question, as an unbiased party. If the parking garages are supposed to be for parking and they're being used for storage, it would be like using the garages for living and using the streets for parking because if they're not being used properly, or to some degree. I mean, if they need storage space, then they can use them for storage, but if they're parking their cars on the road and using their storage, or their parking garages for living quarters or storage space, then it's not necessarily going towards the 1.5 required parking places per, as it should be. I mean, I don't know if that's necessarily the fault of the people that are running or building the space, but maybe they should consider that just because you're giving them space to have their vehicles or storage or whatever, that even though they're not being used properly, that's probably where your problem lies. It's not necessarily parking, it's something else and should be ordinanced as something else, as storage slash parking optionable. And that's all I have to say about
Thank
that
you.
matter.
Dan?
Technical question for Larry or the developer. So if we don't abandon this road, would it be technically possible to fit this building and the required parking on the property around the cul-de-sac?
I haven't done that analysis, so I can't speak to that, but perhaps the developers have looked at other options, I don't know.
Brent or Eric, can you field that question from Dan?
Yeah, the question is, if the Boulder Circle is built, what will we end up doing? It's basically gonna be similar, except things are just gonna be jumbled around, and we feel there's not gonna have that continuity of parking through and overflow parking. Everyone's gonna be parked. We're gonna have to use the street cul-de-sac. The same thing we're trying to do now is get the cars off the street. Boulder Circle, they'd probably just be parked in Boulder Circle, but we think it's gonna be a detriment to the development itself and the look and the feel of the whole 9 whatever acres that the land is.
So if I'm hearing it right, your intent would be to try to build this around Boulder Circle if we don't vacate the street?
Correct.
Okay.
And also, Eric, are you under the opinion that there's enough room to do that? I think that was Dan's original question.
Well, according to the minimum open space requirements, I just looked at the numbers, and this is a very small print, but we're only encompassing a small part of the allowable open space we need. I don't know if I can see it here, but there's a lot more green space than what we need. So this 55 units could be like 85 units, according to the requirements that are set in place right now.
Thank you.
John, do you have something to add?
To add to that discussion.
You want to identify yourself?
Mayor Brink. If they can construct the apartment complex without vacation, that's certainly fine. I would question, or at least bring it to the council's attention, I'm not sure that there's then a need to construct Boulder Circle. It would not service anybody. The property's built out and effectively have a roadway going to nowhere, then yes, we could assess the developer for the construction of that, but we ultimately, as a city, have the long-term O&M, the plowing, seal coating, sweeping, the stormwater and things like that. So if there's no real point of purpose to constructing the road, if this is up to the
It's a technical question, that's all.
Just for everybody's information, that's our city engineer, John Pratt. Further comments from the council or questions?
Well, I go back to the original plat that the original people had when they went out there with Mr. Renner. And I know it was R3, but to these, as a resident, as a citizen, they're not working with this stuff all the time. So they're looking at a plat, and here's sold all these single-family dwellings, and so they think it's gonna be a mixed neighborhood. Well, you know, after this, I mean, if I saw R3 on anything, I wouldn't even come close to it because of what's happened to these people. I mean, it just isn't fair to these folks. And they're expecting to have single-family dwellings, and now nobody's gonna go because they're afraid what could happen around them. It sends up a smoke signal that says, man, if an apartment house goes any place in town, don't go near it because you might end up with more of them. And then you wonder why people in town don't want them in their neighborhood, Bruce's side of town, wherever it might be, out along the lake. I mean, everything's jammed into them. To this one area on the north side behind the Votech, and like you take the Renner's property, you take the two with Stony Brook, and then you have the Pelican Heights apartments over there. I mean, that's 6 units and another big unit. And you say you can put in 85 units? Why? You've already ruined the neighborhood.
Yeah.
You want to make it worse?
Okay.
Can I say something?
Yep, go ahead.
Well,
Madeline.
I don't think his suggestion that he was gonna put 85 units there was actually, he didn't actually mean he was gonna do that, he meant he's got the space to be able to do that. Okay, so here's what I see and what I determined, and this goes way back to the planning commission when they came for those first couple of buildings. And we talked about the fact that the original developer came in and wrote this great big wonderful plan for all these single family homes in this nice cul-de-sac, and 2008 hit. Bottom fell out and Mr. Renner decided not to do that. He decided to sell it to somebody else. He sold it to a developer that looked at it and it's R3 rated. He put in his apartment buildings. Now he's got the option, he's gonna try to put in another apartment building. What I see here from what Dan's question to him is that even if we don't vote to vacate this and we say, yeah, we side with the neighbors, we don't wanna vacate this, that doesn't mean he doesn't have the right to put the apartment there. He's still gonna be able to figure out a way, as long as it meets all of the requirements for what our ordinance states at this time, then he's gonna be able to build the apartment whether we vacate this road or not. That's what I'm getting from this. If I'm wrong, please tell me I'm wrong. If I thought we could vote not to vacate this road and keep you guys okay, and keep all those cars off the street, I'd do it in a minute. But I'm not seeing that that's what can happen here.
And if I might just build on what Madeline's saying, Your Honor, the thing is, if we don't vacate the street and we force the cul-de-sac in there, what we end up with a jigsaw puzzle of parking cars on the street. The plan here at least tries to take into account past mistakes is hard, but I'm gonna be blunt. It's past mistakes and tries to get the parking off the street and make some more sense for the area. So, it's a better plan than trying to build an apartment in a jigsaw puzzle parking around a street that the city can't even use.
So if there was an apartment that was built there, it seems like, and I don't plan too about it, but it seems like every time there's an apartment or some kind of building project, there's always a few different variances that we have to go through. I mean, what kind of an apartment, you know, are there wetlands or what's all, because it seems like we're always giving variances. You know, what is okay to go in there with? Is it going to be what he's looking at, a 55-story?
I do not see any need for variances with the plan that's been presented.
So, question then, just, were there any variances required for the two buildings that are there now?
Yes.
Offhand, you know?
Yes, there were, because the first building was located in the shoreland district because it was closer than 300 feet to the river, and so that's why there was a need for a variance in that particular case.
Isn't human nature crazy? That we're dealing with parking and everybody is fighting to get their steps in for the day, and my wife will drive around the parking lot twice to find the close one right next to one of the community center to walk on a treadmill. I love it that they're making an effort to go put extra parking spots in and go above and beyond, but that still doesn't take away the human nature of, I'm still gonna park as close as I can, whether they have parking spots or not, and it's gonna be on the street if that's what it dictates. Is there a way, and I guess, I don't know, I'm gonna plead ignorance on this one, but is there a way that we can work with both parties and put in no parking upon vacation of this road?
If we felt that there was a public safety issue with having parking on both sides of the street, we could eliminate parking on one side of the street. Or if we felt it was a real big issue, we could eliminate parking on both sides of the street. But that's, I would say, a pretty extreme example, and most of the time, people don't want to not have any parking in their neighborhood because they want places where people can come and park when they come to visit. So I think, in my mind, I would recommend, if we feel that that's a real big issue, to just eliminate parking on one side of the street or the other. And that would resolve a lot of the problems that I've heard of tonight.
So practices states that if there is an issue, we address it from a safety standpoint and then address mainly one side of the road, correct? Okay.
And the other thing, Dan brought up an issue, he's saying, could you still fit all of these units on the space if you didn't have the road? And just doing a quick thumbnail calculation, I think they could fit it on there. But it would not be a very nice design, it wouldn't add additional parking. Certainly they would have to eliminate some of the extra parking they're providing because they wouldn't have enough space to do that. So we would be probably aggravating the situation rather than improving it by taking that path.
I think Ben had his hand up first, and I'll go to Brent, okay? Ben?
I don't think that we're saying that they can't use their property for R3 development. But if you approve the abandonment or vacation of that Boulder Circle, this is what we're gonna get. So they can't build that unless they have Boulder Circle, almost an acre of land, given to them. And what I see here is the developer, and wise on their part, building the maximum amount of apartments and the maximum amount of garages with the minimum amount of parking. I would like to know how many parking spots are over and above what is the minimum requirement for this area. I bet they are right at the minimum. I don't see any parking there for truck trailers. So you get people coming home from work every night and they got a plumbing trailer. They got a trailer with siding. I don't see anything there that's going to do that. And if you approve this, they build their building and they start collecting their rent, and we live with the misery on the street. 2 of those lots are on lots that have covenants. It's supposed to be single-family dwelling. And that's what we bought into. When we looked at the plat maps, that whole thing, just like we were told, single-family or twin homes, some townhomes, 1 apartment up at the corner, everybody was happy. All of a sudden this has happened. I haven't seen a homeowner yet that told me, boy, I'd like to have a big apartment right across the street from my house. I haven't seen one yet. And we keep doing this. If I had my way, I'd annex 80 acres and let the apartment dwellers or apartment builders build until they're blue in the face. But why keep shoving this stuff down the throat of residential neighborhoods? It doesn't make sense. You're just going to create a festering problem. And putting no parking signs, that's one thing. Why don't we create a situation where everybody can write off on it, use their R3 appropriately, but they want the nest egg right in the middle of a 1 acre Boulder Circle Drive.
Okay, thank you, Ben. We're kind of going back and repeating ourselves a little bit here, so unless there's something new that hasn't been said, go ahead, Brent.
Brent Keane with the Stonebrook Development. We would be willing to work within some signage and, to Matt's point, doing one-sided street or another side. So we're open to working with their current, neighborhood to do that.
Man, I've been asking for 2 years for signage down there for these neighbors, and we've got no place to put. I've been wanting no parking. They beg for no parking. We haven't done anything to help these people. And it's not on the people's side, it's on your apartment. That's where the problem is. And it gets worse and worse. But part of this, if we do this, we should have conditions and we have no parking signs so your people can't be on the streets with their trailers and pickups and whatever else. Because right now, even with this new plan, you do not have enough parking. It says in the paper you do, but you don't, because people have too many toys nowadays, and you don't have enough room for all those toys.
Okay, so if we're going to do some no parking regulations, that would be a city council action and decision, so. Okay? Jamie, do you have something?
Yeah, I think that was a really nice comment by Brent about, working with neighbors. The other concern that the neighbors had was the the exiting of people from the parking onto the single-family street. So they would actually first go, you know, kind of, I don't know, what is it? Southeasterly, and then go this way and, you know, to get out. And there's also all the green spaces kind of located the other way. Would it be possible, because you do have a lot of green space, and you've got a lot of great ideas on here. I just wonder if you'd be willing to look at it one more time and perhaps redirect the traffic so that it's not flowing down that single-family housing areas quite so much. And maybe push some green space over there. I think it would help it, just a really good deal.
Okay, unless anybody has something new to add, we've got a lot on the agenda tonight, and we traveled. Oh, do you want them to respond?
Yeah.
Okay. I thought you were just giving them a suggestion, I'm sorry.
The site plan is, the architects might have a couple hours into it. Until we get the schematics on each apartment size and work with the mechanical and plumbers, the plans aren't set in stone. So this is the initial site plan, the best that we could come up with based on the feedback that we've received. And maybe just to defend ourselves a little bit, there's a misconception that you just build an apartment and it's really easy and you kick back and collect the profits or whatever the case may be. Sometimes these things break even for 5 years. We're building these because of the demand and because of the response from the community. And you'd be hard pressed to find someone that works longer and harder hours. You can ask our wives and families that. Thank you.
One last thing, I guess, what I'm hearing is we've got our ordinances in place, and basically now we're complaining that we've got a building that's gonna fit on a piece of property that doesn't need a variance, and we don't like that. And we're talking about the vacation of a road to make it a better property, and I guess if that's the case, if they could put it in regardless of whether we vacate that road, I guess I can't see any reason why we should or see any reason to deny vacating that road. Because it's gonna just be better for the city in the long run to have this happen. We can address the parking in the future, because that's on us, and that's something that we need to take care of.
I think, Dan, did you have something before Jamie?
Sure. Actually, I'm going to build on what Jamie said. If we go ahead with this tonight, there would be minimal or no requirements for you guys to meet with the neighbors on any of this. But, Jamie has some good ideas. There could be other ones coming from the neighborhood that would make this real palatable. And I would just encourage you to, when the city does a big project, we have meetings, and you wouldn't be beholden to do that, but I think you could get a lot of goodwill and a lot of good ideas by involving the neighbors in the site plan and so forth. And I'd encourage you to do that moving forward with the approvals.
Jamie, you have something?
No, I do agree that the project is, I mean, we do get these guys do quality work. I don't think that's really an issue at all. But someone mentioned that the issue of vacating a road is it in the public interest? And we attended a meeting last night where, they talked about good planning leads to additional investment by the private sector, basically. And I think that there is a potential detrimental effect to the further development of that Canyon Boulevard area, and that's kind of my concern. I think overall it's a great project, but I think the way that it's put together, it could have a detrimental effect. It's not in the public interest.
Any last comments before I call the question?
Well, I would like to see it go back and have it back, and hold a meeting with the public and with the planners and get together, and then they would sit down together. Because right now it's just open up.
I mean, I don't think they have any requirement to do that though, Ron. They don't need any variances or things like that.
But you got the whole neighborhood that has not happened, how it's being set up, and that's got to count for something when we talk about people's lives.
Oh, I understand that. I just don't know what could change by sending it back. It doesn't even have to go through planning.
I realize that, but if you wanna be a good neighbor, like they said they wanna be, bring it to the planning commission, let them sit down with both sides and then let's sit down.
Mayor, I need to abstain on this for the conflict.
All right, we've hashed it out, I think, to the fullest. We need to move on with our proceedings here because we have a lot of stuff on the agenda. So I would entertain a motion at this time from the council.
I'd like to make a motion to approve. They're doing double the parking requirements. They've got some good stuff here with the walking path, the dog park, the playground, the retention pond. We've brought up some good points on both sides of the fence, but I do feel like if parking is going to be an issue, there are things that we can do to address it. I think this addresses some current problems with the first two apartments, giving some extra parking for the past discretions. And so on that, I'd like to make a motion to vacate Canyon Boulder Circle.
Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to vacate the right-of-way of Boulder Circle. Is that enough description in the motion? Final discussion by the council?
I kind of feel like it's a rock and hard place.
Yeah.
You know, if developers are gonna go forward with or without, I guess I'd rather go with, have a nice clean project that they're hopefully willing to work with us on, rather than a road going through there to nowhere that we have to maintain in a hodgepodge garage filled around the cul-de-sac.
And Alderman Imholt informs me that he's abstaining due to a conflict of interest. So I'll call the question. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Yeah, I'm gonna do a roll call this so we don't goof up here. Dan?
Aye.
Natalie? Dan?
Aye.
Keely? Matt?
Aye.
Ron?
No.
Aye.
Judy?
Be careful.
Abstain. So I think we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 2, 5, 3 passes, right? I was never really good in math. Okay, thank you all for coming and for your politeness and your comments. We appreciate your attendance tonight.
Mayor, I don't know if you'd like to say, but public safety is deal with parking, and this next meeting is August 7th. If you'd like to bring it up there.
Okay?
Maybe you would. More than welcome.
Brad, we kind of ask folks to take the conversation out. Okay, we'll get back to order here. I'd like at this time to call to order a public hearing to receive public comments relative to revoking the rental registration for 327 Elizabeth Street. Owner Laurel Carlson. Who on staff would like to preface this for the council?
I would begin the hearing with our co-compliance official, Priscilla Graff.
There's a handout of the presentation that I've put on the PowerPoint if you needed a. If you need a paper copy, can you still hear me? As a code compliance official, I investigate
city code and zoning ordinance violations and present my findings to the city council. At the beginning of May, I was called to a rental concern at 327 Elizabeth Street and whether this was an approved and registered rental. Upon inspection, a number of zoning violations were discovered. Section 7 of the zoning ordinance sets the standards the city is to go by regarding the R2 district. Subsection 4 sets the minimum requirements to a two-family dwelling for 12,000 square feet per lot. The property in question sits on 75 square feet, which is too small to have multiple dwellings. This is a layout of the property, and you can see it's 7,500 square feet as according to the Becker County website. Subdivision 4 of the same section sets the standards for general building and performance requirements with the purpose you see listed in A, to enhance the health, safety, and general welfare of the residents of the community. B states a garage, tent, or accessory building shall not at any time be used as an independent residence or dwelling. 327 is attached to the backside of the detached garage for 325 Elizabeth Street. It was discovered that 325 is the primary residence, highlighted in yellow. 325 and a half is the basement rental, also in the yellow box. And the pink highlighted area is a detached garage for 325. The garage rental is on the backside of the garage at 327 Elizabeth. The following pictures are from at different angles. This is from this is from Elizabeth Street of 325. This image is of the garage rental 327 from the alley. This image shows the white paint of 327 Elizabeth is the actual dwelling area. The gray portion you see further along is the 325 garage. This image shows the porch that was attached to the 327 garage as an entrance to the garage rental. The homeowner sent a letter and listed the improvements made on this property in the last 6 years. More pictures. According to our records, no building permits were issued for 327, 325, or 325 and a half. Had they applied for a building permit, an inspection would have caught the issues of 3 dwellings on one parcel that is 7,500 square feet. The homeowner has been registering 327 as a rental. With the different address, the city was unaware that of the density issue this property creates in this neighborhood. 325 and a half has never been issued a rental registration. On the front of the rental certificate, it is clearly stated the rental must conform with the requirements of the City of Detroit Lakes City Code, Section 612, and all other applicable ordinance. On this slide here, you can see the signature on the bottom, highlighted with the red box. Our zoning ordinance and city codes are in place to enhance the health, safety, and welfare of the residents in the community, to protect the density of the neighborhood and the safety of the inhabitants and the neighbors. Recommendation of staff is to revoke the rental license of 327 Elizabeth Street. Do you have any questions?
Is there any questions for Priscilla? Okay, thank you very much. Other questions may come up here, but is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak to the issue relative to revoking the rental registration for 327 Elizabeth Street? And if you would just state your name and address and who you are, please, for our minutes.
Laurel Carlson, the owner at 325 Elizabeth.
Thank you.
In May, I received a letter from the City of Deal signed by Mr. Raymond and Ms. Dora advising I can no longer rent my apartment at 327 Elizabeth Street. and the basement of 325 Elizabeth Street, citing city ordinances which I believe were adopted in 1986 and 2005. I am here to request that these apartments be grandfathered in so I may continue to rent them. The apartment at 327 Elizabeth is built onto the back of my garage. It was built in 1945. I believe the city of Detroit Lakes approved it as a residence when it was assigned a house number, when the other houses on Elizabeth Street were assigned house numbers. I have rented it out since I bought the property in 1977. It was rented out at that time. That is 40 years ago. I know it was rented out in the 60s and assume it was rented since it was built in 45. I have received a rental certificate from the city every year since it has been required. I have invested a great deal of money in the apartment over the last 6 years. New roof on the entry, new windows and insulation, new furnace, flooring, shower, and toilet. They stated in the letter that there must be a larger window. That can easily be done. When the apartment was inspected, there were other minor things to be done, which will all be taken care of this summer. When I bought the property in 1977, my father built an outside entrance for the basement apartment and installed a larger egress window. It was inspected and approved by the city inspector. I have recently put in a new kitchen range, new floor, shower, and toilet. My renter at 327 Elizabeth has been there almost 7 years. He is a 60-year-old disabled veteran recovering from a liver transplant which was performed at the Mayo Clinic in Rochester. He is currently having problems and had to return to Rochester in June and may have to return to Rochester again next week. He tells me he has no place to go, cannot afford any other place, and this will force him into homelessness. This is not fair or just. It will force 3 people from their homes, my 2 renters and myself. I am 70 years old, alone, and the only other income I have is a small social security check every month. I cannot afford to remain in my home of 40 years without the income from the apartments. And in the end, who does it hurt? It has been there since 1945 and has hurt no one. Thank you for your consideration.
Okay, Priscilla, can I just ask you one question?
Yep.
Are we talking about the rental unit in the garage or the rental unit or the rental unit in the basement?
I did not inspect 325 and a half in the basement. We are
I'm
only
just talking
requesting
about the garage.
just the garage. We are not
situation.
requesting the revocation of the 325 and a half, although it hasn't been registered. We would require her to register that.
Okay.
We could just transfer that, but just a revocation of the 327.
Okay, just wanted to make that clear. Is there anyone else in the audience that wishes to speak to the issue of the consideration to revocation of the rental registration at 327 Elizabeth Street? Dave?
As your building official for the city, I just want to comment that I was with a company, Priscilla, on this inspection. We noted, we came back. You know, I'm going to say, unfortunately, as a building inspector or in Priscilla's capacity, we can't lean on issues of, you know, that are being presented. We have to look at it from a standpoint of health, life, safety. And that's why this is being presented, because there are issues, concerns. It does not conform to the zoning ordinance. All the improvements that have been made to the property, been stated they've been done within the last 6 years. I've been your building official for a little over 7 years. None of these improvements have been permitted. You know, so there's been 0 inspections performed on this property for the improvements that have been accomplished. It's unfortunate, but the only way I can look at it is from the ordinances and the building code that I'm required to enforce.
Anyone else in the audience have any comments they'd like to make? Yes, sir.
My name is Brian Fraser. I happen to be the tenant in the apartment without question. I have lived there for 6.5 years. Yes, and it does need some work on it. The items that need to be fixed to bring it up to code are simple items, and I can fix those myself. The zoning ordinances that are being referred to do not go back to when this building originated. And like I say, I used to be a carpenter. I can bring up all the code violations, including the window, ground fault interceptors. There's been talk about putting a brand new water heater in. The current one does not have a shut-off valve on it. Well, it's from 1962, so with my stove. So it has been a rental for quite a long time. And I have done some improvements this year. But again, I'm recovering from a liver transplant. And I just had that done in November. I cannot afford to move. I don't have the money to move. This place is the only home I have. And I need my dog as well. And I'll lose him if I lose my home. So I'm asking the council to please allow this to be grandfathered in.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor,
Yeah,
can we ask our city attorney to just give us a brief
I was gonna do
update
that.
on grandfather?
Charlie, if you would, just to update the rest of the council, I heard what you had to say today, or yesterday at the committee meeting, but tell us about the grandfathering and the zoning and this type of thing.
These are alleged to be zoning violations, and one of the doctrines that applies to the zoning ordinance is what we call a legal non-conforming use. And basically the theory there is that if the use of a piece of property was legal at the time prior to the adoption of what we call the official control, which I will call the zoning ordinance in this case, then the city does not have the right to, by subsequently adopting an ordinance, to prohibit that existing legal use. So to bring that down to the circumstances in this matter, and I'm not sure that the facts are all that clear, but the city of Detroit Lakes adopted its zoning ordinance in 1968. This type of restriction is in nearly every zoning ordinance where we don't allow a dwelling to be in an accessory building. And so the real question for you from a grandfathering standpoint is there evidence that prior to 1968, this use of the accessory building, so the apartment in the accessory building, is there sufficient evidence to convince you that that was a legal non-conforming use prior to the adoption of the city's zoning ordinance?
Okay. Anyone have questions for Charlie about that explanation?
Well, it is the burden of the person who is asserting the legal non-conforming use to provide evidence of that. So when you say, how do we find that out? Ultimately, that's for you to judge. You're acting as the judges in this case. The owner of the property certainly made some statements here tonight that they felt that this had existed as an apartment dwelling since 1945. If you find that to be sufficient evidence, that would be evidence. It is evidence, it's a statement. But whether it's sufficient depends upon whether or not you find that to be credible. What other sort of evidence there might be to substantiate that was an existing use in 1968. Ultimately, though, the question is for you to decide whether that's happening.
Okay, I have another question. So who has been the rental building inspector prior to Priscilla? Why hasn't this ever been found out before the month of May?
Mayor and council.
She's been renting it for 40 years.
Again, with the rental registrations, in the past, we've had an application form. Basically, the applicant signs off on the application that they meet all city applicable code. And basically with the different addresses, it was never picked up upon. now we're doing the inspections, and actually this inspection stemmed from a complaint from one of the neighbors asking concern about a residence in the garage, so that's what's really initiated the inspection, but again, if there was a record of any building permits, maybe then we would have noticed it too, but in light of that.
But we've never had a rental building inspector before Priscilla.
Well, rental inspections conducted, as complaint driven, basically our building official would do rental inspections if we had complaint driven. What we're doing now with Priscilla is really proactive inspections. Our goal is to get every rental that's registered with the city of Detroit Lakes inspected every 3 years.
Is there anyone else in the audience that wants to speak to the issue? Jay?
Mayor, council members,
Name
Jay
and address
Olmos.
just for the record, council.
We have the property next door at 329 Elizabeth and 324 Langford. Both properties adjoin this property. I'm going to start with the Priscilla question. We've complained about this property for years, calling into the city, nothing's been done. This year we complained, and all of a sudden, we got an answer. And I'm glad that you have an inspector. And we have a real estate business in this town, we have rentals, and we try to follow the rules the best we can. There's a lot of code violations, like this listening tonight, you know, doing his own work for one, you know, no building permits, all these things that we follow. Like hiring commercial people, paying the extra money, doing these things. It's just not fair. The building is not even close to being up to code. I gotta take out the picture how it's half painted, you know, as a neighbor, we look at that for years, and it's just an eyesore. In the winter, they put, I call it kindling next to the building, they pile leaves next to it to keep the air down. Well, I mean, this is a fire hazard. The whole thing is bad. We've been following the rules for years. Priscilla came out and inspected 3 of our properties. We passed them all on the same day, which I was proud of, so was she. So we have more inspections to go, and I expect to pass them on the first try without a re-inspection. So that's our feelings on this. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Further comments? Dave?
Just one additional comment. Again, as a building official, I need to look at it from health, life, safety, and follow the rules established by the council and by the building code. And by no means meaning this in an argumentative manner, but the individual has stated that he would be able to make all the corrections. He would not be able to make all of the corrections legally. He cannot perform the electrical work that is required to be in that building. That needs to be performed by a licensed electrician and once again inspected by a state electrical inspector. So I just wanted to clarify that one issue.
Yep.
I'd like to make another comment, please, if you don't mind. The electrical issues he was referring to are replacing the GFI outlets. I can do that myself. The painting will be done this year. The windows that need to be put in, which is one egress window, I can do that myself. I am a veteran living on pension, as well as being recovering from a liver transplant. I'm also disabled. But everything that was done through the inspection, I was there, I can fix. Except for one, and that's replacing the water heater. That's a plumber would have to do that. The water heater is from 1962, and the range is also from 1962. So those go back before I lived there, and it is evidence that it was a rental back before 1968.
Okay.
I thank you.
Thank you again. And just so you know, I think our building inspector is disagreeing with you on you doing that electrical part, so.
Yeah, it's just changing over.
I think we had one in the, Beth, did you have something?
Good evening, my name is Beth Olness. Also with my husband, we are the owners of 329 Elizabeth Street and 324 Langford Street. Both of our properties are next door to the property. I've been calling for years because we've had a lot of concerns about this illegal rental unit. It is a garage. That's what it is. It's very unsafe. We've had a lot of concerns because during the winter time, in one of the pictures you'll see right here, they push up bags of leaves around it. It's a fire hazard. We're very afraid for our properties to receive damage if this were to go up in flames, because people should not be living in garages that are not approved. A violation of the city codes is a violation. It's us renters or rental owners. We try very hard to keep our properties in very good condition. We're the first ones in the city ever to pass all the inspections of the ones that we've done so far. And I just hope that you will, for the well-being of the public and for us that own properties in the neighborhood, not grandfather this property as a rental unit. Thank you very much.
Laurel, did you want to add something too?
Yes. It is not a garage. The apartment is built onto the back of my garage. There's no access from the apartment to the garage. I will get Lamies out to do any electrical work necessary. It does need painting, and that will be done this summer. We do put leaves along that side of the building in the winter for added insulation. If that's a problem, we will not do it anymore. I did not realize I needed a permit to replace the furnace. Is that correct? We need a building permit to replace the furnace?
Yep.
I did not know that. And I would like to say again, I believe the city of DL approved it as a residence when it was assigned its own house number, when the other houses on Elizabeth Street were given their numbers. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak to the issue?
Is that a city thing or a post office thing, signing the number? You know?
I don't actually know.
Post office is not too much for that.
Anyone else in the audience? Otherwise, we'll put it up to the council here. So I'll close that public hearing. What are your wishes as a council, or do you have any additional comments or questions, Bruce?
Tough situation for Mr. Frazier, obviously. I'm sure the council will all tell you, Mr. Frazier, we appreciate your service. And for Ms. Carlson to have rendered this all these years, I think she's valid. But I guess I would remind the council that one of the reasons we hired a code compliance officer was to try to bring all our rental units in the city up to code. I mean, I guess I'd have a hard time, and I heard the comment earlier about the city granting a lot of variances on building things. Well, and I have to agree with that comment, but now if we all of a sudden start saying, oh, we're going to have a code compliance officer, but we're going to start granting exceptions to the rental rules we've established, either you like the rules and we need to enforce them, or then we need to go back and change the rules. So, I mean, that would be the question now with the rules as they are now, as our staff has done their due diligence, worked hard at this, and come to us with a recommendation for revocation. My personal feeling is, well, that's a hardship for the folks. I think we have to enforce our rules. But what I would suggest, and I'm willing to make a motion, but I think we need to give these folks some time, and I think we need to give Mr. Frazier some time to find some alternate housing, and I would probably, and I'm willing to make a motion now, and then you can throw it up for discussion, but that way, I move that we enforce the revocation, but allow Mr. Frazier and the owner up until December 31st to vacate the place. That's my motion.
Bruce, I agree with what you're saying,
Oh.
with variances.
And if we don't have a second.
Yeah, let's get a second.
I'll second it.
All right. Motion's been made and seconded to, and just so I get this correct, Bruce, you want to you're moving to revoke the rental registration for 327 Elizabeth and effective end of December, is that what you said? Now, is there any, I want to go back to what Charlie was explaining about the zoning when it came in, and is there a possibility, Laurel, that you could document that this was a rental unit at the date when our zoning went into effect? Or is there no way you could do that?
What year are we talking?
1968.
I can get evidence of that right now by the water heater and the electric stove. They're from 1962.
Well, Kelsey, do you have something you want to say?
Mayor and council, I just want to add one thing to the conversation. The grandfathering applies to the zoning code violations. Grandfathering does not apply to rental code or building code violations. Health and safety violations cannot be grandfathered.
Right, and
So-
just to clarify that exactly, we are talking about a rental registration revocation on the basis of violation of the zoning code. So whatever you would do, if there's any continuation of allowing this property to continue as a rental unit, you should require compliance with the rental registration.
So if she were to produce evidence that it was actually a rental before the zoning went into effect, it still needs to be brought up to our codes, rental codes we have currently.
So are you saying if it was brought up to code by December, it would be grandfathered in? Is that what
No,
you're saying?
she would need to prove to us that it was a rental on the day that we adopted our zoning ordinance in 1968. And then she could keep it as a rental if she brought all the code violations into compliance. Explain that?
Just be clear, my motion does not reflect 1968. It
Right.
reflects the fact that we've been recommended that it's a revocation of the rental because we don't think it's the proper.
So can we give her an extension into this until she can produce some evidence or something? I mean, this isn't a corporation, these are people's lives. And he's a veteran, and she's a lady that depends on his income. I mean, I just think we're talking about this like it's a big business, and it isn't. These are people. She's been doing this for 40 years, and I just
And I'm not
can't.
talking about like a big corporation. That's why I've argued for a longer time, and that's why I said December 31st. Technically,
And then
you
what's
could
he
give them
supposed
30
to do
days.
December 31st? It's the middle of winter, it's
And-
30 below.
And
It
my
just doesn't make
follow-up,
sense.
if I would have had a chance to talk, was I think we need to give some assistance. There's certain organizations in town, United Way, Salvation Army. If the city needs to assist in Mr. Fraser's relocation, I think I would be happy to say we should do all we can to do it. I'm not trying, and we talked about this yesterday, Carl, I agree. You don't want to throw a veteran on the street, so it's a matter of, you say they're in violation and we need to, we need to not have a rental unit there. We've heard from neighbors who have argued that this should not be a rental unit. And then can we do something to help them? So it's not me just saying, I want to throw a veteran on the street, because people that were in the meeting yesterday can understand that I said exactly that when we talked about this issue. I said, we don't want to be perceived as just throwing a veteran on the street. So please don't put those words in my mouth, because that's not what I was saying.
Ron?
Do they have a certain amount of time to bring it up to code?
I'm gonna have Ron.
Okay, well, right now we do have a housing authority, and the housing authority has a number of apartments that the rental income is based on this gentleman's income. And I don't know what the inventory is right now, but they're clean homes, they're modern, they're up to date, and most times the real income, like I said, is based on the income. And we could get a hold of them and find out what the inventory is right now, but it comes down to, like Bruce was saying, it's code violations. We've got 2 building inspectors, this doesn't even come close to the code for health, safety, or whatever reason it is. It's a fire trap. And I know he's lived there for a long time, but that doesn't make it right. But we certainly would help him, and I know we've got the housing authority, and they do have inventories. And inventory moves with people coming and going in our town. than the Findham housing. But, we want to be fair, but at the same time, we do have this, person that's working on codes, and they don't meet their codes at all. And that's, that's just one of the problems. There's other problems they also have over there too with the basement apartment that doesn't have, the proper egress windows and stuff, so.
Yes, it does.
And so there's other problems that we have with this property, and maybe Dave wants to talk about some of that too with the basement apartments, and, so it's just, part of the problem is there's more than just the building on the end of the garage.
Well, just to be clear, Ron, the motion pertains only
To the garage.
327.
Yeah.
Did you want to add something, Dave?
I wanted to add again, and I do want to add a personal comment after I make this comment. I don't feel it's proof just because appliances are dated before that date. You see it on a regular basis where people put used appliances into places, so I don't think that would be a consideration. On a personal note, I'm a 20-year veteran. I will do personally everything possibly I could do to assist the individual to get him with the right programs and to do what I can to get him into adequate housing. I don't feel where he's at is adequate housing, and I'll let it at that.
Further discussion?
So we started registering, how long ago did we start registering rentals?
5 years ago?
No, it was more than that. It's just a guess that I would say in the late 90s, early 2000s.
So
Larry, do you have
technically it should
any?
have been
I
registered
don't
this whole
remember
time,
when
and
it
we would have had a
started.
chance to address this.
Again, that they explained the issue about why we issue rental registration for 10 cents.
Further discussion? We've heard all the comments, we've heard discussion by the council. Anybody want to add anything to the mix?
I don't mean to repeat myself. I appreciate what Barb's saying, and I think those of us that were in the committee yesterday said exactly the same thing, that, it's a tough situation, you talk about people's lives here, but I think, I appreciate what Dave said, and Ron mentioning the housing authority, I'm sure we can help Mr. Frazier, and as a city, we should do whatever we can to facilitate that. But again, the bottom line comes down to, is do you want to approve based on the violations and the fact that it's not supposed to be a rental unit, and you willing to give an exception to that, I guess, on that.
Okay. Final
So,
chance for
we
discussion?
don't want the paper, we said yesterday, we don't want the paper to read that we're just kicking a disabled pet out of his home.
And his
That's
dog.
not the plan.
And his dog.
Okay. Any final thoughts? Otherwise, I'm going to call the question. Motion is to revoke the rental registration at 327 Elizabeth Street, and the effective date of that would be December 31st of 2017. Okay. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Thank you all for your politeness and consideration and attendance.
Can I ask one question?
Sure.
If I can produce proof that it was a rental before 1968?
Then you'll have to come back and see us again. Okay? All right, thank you. Our agenda is 7 pages long, and we've just completed page 1.
Thank you for your time.
Without objection, I told some folks I would move around a little bit to accommodate the schedule. And so without objection, I'd like to go to agenda item 5F on the community development. Ron?
Okay, item 5F is consideration to a resolution approving the variance application to allow a 14 by 34.5 foot deck with a 60-foot setback from ordinary height watermark at 1624 Long Bridge Road, Brian Clark and Barb Mulberg. Larry, can you give us an update on this?
Well, essentially, the request is to allow a 14 by 34.5 foot deck with a 60-foot setback from the ordinary high water mark. We will have a narrow lot. They have another suitable location on the lot of conflict with that, so they requested a variance. The planning commission recommends approval.
The committee has reviewed this and we'll go ahead and recommend the approval of this resolution for the variance.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the variance application to allow a 14 by 34.5 foot deck with a 60-foot setback, 1624 Longbridge Road. Discussion on the motion.
Should we make sure the conditions are ready to amend so we've got those on record?
Yeah, there are two conditions that go along with this request. First, that the walkway attached to the deck be removed and replaced with a deck impervious surface. And two, that the property owner provide on-site stormwater treatment for the impervious surface coverage on the lot that is in excess of 25%.
Okay. Anything else to add? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Awesome.
They should all be this easy.
Without objection by the council, can we move to agenda item 6O, which is on the Public Works Committee? Jay?
Mayor, there is also one other public hearing on your agenda.
I'm sorry. Okay, we'll jump back to that right after 6O, okay?
Sure.
Jay, will you take 6O?
Consideration of the request submitted by Jonathan Atkins for a special event permit to hold the Muscatel Ojibwe Forest Rally and close various streets on Saturday, August 26, 2017. And it looks like the gentlemen are here today to discuss what the proposed changes are.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for inviting us back again. This will be the fourth year we've run the street stage, and this year what we're looking to do is we're looking to change the course up. The last 3 years what we've done is we left the fairgrounds, gone down Rossman to Lakeshore Drive, and then taken the right turn down North Shore and ended up over at the high school. This year what we're proposing to do, it should be better for our spectators as well as for the continuity of the race. We're going to go down same route except turning right. We're going to make a U-turn at North Shore Drive and go back to the fairgrounds. So with that, it will give our spectators a chance to see the cars 4 times instead of 2, as well as the safety aspect of the fact that our race cars won't be driving through public streets to get back to the fairgrounds for the second running of the event. As part of that, we're looking to move we do what's called a park expose, and that's where we invite all the cars out and the drivers and our spectators to come meet the drivers, see the cars. And instead of doing that on Friday like we have in years past, we're going to do that Saturday, right before, because that area of North Shore Drive that will be effectively closed by our race route would allow us to set up what we're terming as a rally village. We're going to have Subaru's going to bring out a big semi-sized trailer that opens up on the side, lets people come in. Toyota sounds like they're bringing the same thing. Toyota's not confirmed yet, but it's about 95%. So we'll have a couple of different people there. It'll be in that area between Washington Avenue and the first entrance to the park. So the only time that entrance to the park would be closed is during the 1 hour park expose, where we're having all of our spectators come out and take a look at it. So it's going to make it a lot more of a festive atmosphere and give people a better chance and a better look at the cars.
Okay. Thank you very much. And this was originally on the consent agenda. Was there a reason we wanted it off, just so they could explain it?
Yes, give them some publicity.
Publicity?
Yep. I did have him. I had a phone call with the chief on Friday. We discussed various details in the safety plan, his concerns, my concerns. And then yesterday, after I met with the Public Works Committee, I stopped by the police department, and he actually had some time to spend about 20 minutes or so. And we discussed it in person. I showed him the maps, exactly where we're going to be, and allayed a lot of his concerns that he had as far as potential for any mishaps that happen.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So Brad and Chief, you're good with the safety plan submitted?
They definitely have a lot of thought and preparation into it and a lot of experience doing it. I was impressed with what I saw.
Okay, thank you. Jay?
So is there action necessary? Yeah, okay, so the Public Works Committee's had a chance to look at this and recommends approval, and I so move.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve a special event permit for the Muscatel Ojibwe Forest Rally, August 26th in Detroit Lakes. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Mayor,
Thank you.
if I could,
Yeah.
I see the scaries are in the back patiently waiting, and that's
Yep.
5A, and that should take relatively quick.
I was gonna go to them next.
Thank you.
See you on the 26th.
Without objection, can we go to item 5A on the agenda?
Item 5A. This is a consideration to the second reading and adoption of ordinance number 414, amending section 20 of the zoning ordinance on rezoning 303 Home Street West from a R3 multifamily residential district to a B1 central business district. The committee's had a chance to review this, and I so move that we go ahead with the second reading approval.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to give second reading and adopt ordinance number 414, rezoning 303 Home Street West from R3 to B1. Discussion on the motion. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Oh, there's one. Did you get that, Glory? Thank you for being patient and waiting.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Without objection, can we go to agenda item 8B? And it's all the folks with the green shirts on, I think.
Item 8B was brought, kind of consists of three different proposals that we wanted to bring to the council. This has been discussed in the last 2, if not 3, public safety meetings. We felt this was a bigger concern to educate all the council members on this. There's kind of 3 different proposals we'd like to discuss amongst ourselves tonight. One being T21. T21 would raise the limit to purchase alcohol to 21 years old. Tobacco, thank you. Raise tobacco to 21. You can still legally have it if you're under 21. The second is to update the ordinance with language, ordinance number 607, to bring language in there to kind of update the ordinance of that. The third, which we have decided to defer, would be the Clean Air Act. The Clean Air is a state policy right now. This would go above and beyond what Minnesota state law is right now. At this point, we're bringing it up to have discussion here about it. We decided not to make a motion for or against it because we figured it was a bigger concern that everybody needed to be aware of. What we're thinking at this point now was to bring this back next to Public Safety Committee in August to make a recommendation for the August meeting. If that is going to be a positive recommendation, we need to wait 30 days to notify all the licensees in the city of Detroit Lakes. Upon a positive recommendation, a vote there, there would be the first reading at the September meeting. I guess I call on Mr. Ramsett or Mr. Clem to update any holes I have left open.
First of all, very good job. You covered a lot of it. There's several attachments in the packet. One is kind of the city attorney's memo that came from the city attorney and your assistant.
Mr. Bakken.
I'll give him his chance to be on TV too. So if you want to speak to that memo, I'm sure he's prepared to do so. Otherwise, I think Alderman Bovee did a good job summarizing kind of where we're at.
So, is there any need for some discussion this evening, or are we
It
just
would
going to
be
defer action?
it'd be questions upon
If the
council, if
council
not
has any
defer it
questions,
till
okay.
August 7th, public safety meeting.
Anyone in the council want to pose any questions about sort of where we're at with this matter?
The only question I have, and I let it know at the meeting yesterday, is that with any code change, it comes to enforcement issues. And how do you enforce this? And right now, without the state of Minnesota, they tried to get this statewide, and it didn't pass. We only have one city, Edina, that did get it passed. But it comes down to enforcement issue and how we can enforce this. And right now, you can go up on Highway 59, not too far, and be able to buy cigarettes out of town. And you go down to County Road 6 and buy them at the Sorrow. So if you do this, it doesn't mean that the cigarette problem is going to go away. It's still in your backyard. when it comes down to how we're gonna enforce this, does the chief have a plan how he's gonna go around with all the retail stores and make sure that everything is right? I can understand what they're trying to do here, but like I said yesterday, I have a hard time. We've got people that are 18 years old that are able to vote for the governor of Minnesota, they can vote for the president of the United States, they can enlist in service and get a gun to go across to the Middle East or Afghanistan and get shot at or get shot themselves, and they come back to Detroit Lakes, Minnesota, and we said that, we know you got shot, but you're not old enough to buy a package of cigarettes because you're 19 years old. It doesn't make sense. At 18 years old, some people gotta start making some of their own decisions. And it comes down, I don't want to see another ordinance on the books that can't be enforced. And to just have a rule and say this and not be able to enforce it is very tough on it. And like I said yesterday, I've spent a lot of time down in Rochester, Minnesota, and when I see doctors and nurses standing behind buildings on my way back to Hope Lodge smoking cigarettes, it's a tough situation for even the doctors to get up there. And to come up with a plan, how you're going to enforce this is my whole issue on this, is enforcement. And I think that's something we've got to work on between now and next month, of how the chief is going to enforce all of this.
Okay, other questions or comments for the council? Dan?
I've got two comments just to kind of piggyback or respond to Ron. The bill in the legislature did get voted down, just didn't make committee time, so it's still alive in the state legislature. So it's still a possibility that might go statewide anyway. But that's for somebody else to decide. Depending on what we do, it's not going to make a difference on what the legislature does, as we learned earlier tonight, or 4 hours ago. The other item on enforcement, a lot of these things, it's like our rental properties. Most of our violations are from complaints. They aren't from our police officer walking around the street checking IDs for somebody drinking on the beach or smoking on the beach or whatever. If you see the police cars going the opposite direction and you're on the other side of town, you roll a stop sign, somebody doesn't complain, did you violate the law? Yes. Did you get caught? No. So I don't think the violation and enforcement side of this is a real, it's not the end all and be all to this conversation, and I think we just need to have a little bit more conversation about the ordinance itself and going forward.
Okay. Further comments or discussion, Jay?
I'm just kind of wondering why we're deferring this again. I mean, the reality is what makes sense here, and obviously we've got a lot of people here that have an interest on both sides of the fence, but the reality is it would be nice to put it to a vote, and I guess we're just not able to. Is that correct? Please do.
Okay. At last month's meeting, the city attorney's office was directed to prepare a revised, an ordinance revision for our existing ordinance. And we did that. Mr. Bakken and I worked that together, but that's a real simple change. Takes the existing ordinance, bumps it from 18, the age of 18 to 21. And that could be something that's either voted up or voted down. But in that process, we were asked to look a little bit at other proposals. And so we looked at the ordinance adopted by the city of Lebanon. The League of Minnesota Cities has a proposed revision to licensing and tobacco ordinances. And the proponents, many of whom are sitting in the room tonight, also proposed to us a set of proposed ordinances, different suggestions. And those suggestions were essentially an entire rewrite of the tobacco code in the city of Detroit Lakes. They weren't just a small change. And so I will take the blame for that. I looked at that, I said, okay, that's fine. I'll make the change from 18 to 21, and you guys can vote that up or vote it down. But what the proponents are asking you to do here is far greater than that. It is an entire, complete revision of the tobacco ordinance. And I wasn't comfortable in making that as a proposed ordinance because it's got a whole lot of other stuff. It has all of the e-cigarettes and the vaping. It prohibits candy cigarettes, things that look like cigarettes. So it's a major policy change in that ordinance. And then they proposed a different ordinance, which would essentially be an extension of what is already state statute, the Minnesota Clean Indoor Air Act, but would be extended again to e-cigarettes and extend it to a 20-foot buffer strip around all buildings, okay? Again, a much greater extension than what we had originally talked about. So we are certainly prepared to say if you were interested in voting up or voting down, 18 to 21, that's a real simple change. But the proposals were much more extensive than that. And so I brought that to the Public Safety Committee with a question mark, more so than anything else. Do you want us to look at those additional policy changes beyond what is a simple alteration of the existing ordinance? And you can correct me if I'm wrong, Alderman Boki, but my take back from the committee meeting is that they did want us to look at that. And so I will take the blame for not having to vote up and down tonight. But the committee, I believe, wanted us to look at some of those additional policy changes and give you the choices on those additional policy changes. But my understanding was that the committee did not recommend that we look at the extension of the Minnesota Clean Indoor Air Act. In other words, there's two separate things going on. There's the licensing ordinance for tobacco and tobacco products, an extension of that to prohibit sales of those tobacco products and e-cigarettes. And then there's a separate proposal by the proponents to extend the Minnesota Clean Indoor Air Act provisions to e-cigarettes and to this 20-foot buffer. And my takeaway from the committee was that that review or that proposal is something that's going to be deferred. In other words, we are not going to be working on that between now and August. What we are going to be working on is the licensing ordinance changes and making some recommendations there. And you would then be faced in August with a review of that, but the process requires us to provide 30-day notices to licensees, so you would not have your vote until September at first. Okay, because that's a long way of answering your question, and I'm sorry for you.
Thank you.
Stay standing with my question is for the hearing. So the proposal is beyond the tobacco 21, which is what Edina is adopting. So the proposal here is beyond that. Is that what you're saying?
No, what Edina did, I don't want to take up too much time because we're late, but the League of Minnesota Cities put out a proposed revision to the tobacco ordinances. And I believe they did so with, what's the name of the organization, Pat? Public Health
Law Center.
Public Health Law Center. And they worked together with them. Edina took those changes, those proposals from the league, and made some additional changes, put some things in, left some things out. But Edina's revision of their code, and correct me if I'm wrong, Pat, essentially followed a lot of what the league's proposal was, which was something that was adopted in working with this Public Health Law Center. And now the proponents of this have come back, and I will characterize it as extended that further. In other words, what they're asking you to adopt is something more extensive than what Edina did. Okay? Now, whether you want to do that or not, that's your call to make. But the request for Detroit Lakes would be, if you take their model ordinance, it would be more involved than what Edina has been requested to do, to some degree. It's a further extension.
And I have a follow-up question, Mayor, and I don't know if you can answer this or...
Pat Bakken is our intern. Pat, why don't you stand up just so you can get the heat as well as me.
So what I understand right now is that St. Louis Park has currently got an ordinance proposed in both Mankato and North Mankato, also at one of the, and we had a chance to coordinate any of this with those.
We have not looked at those proposals, and I wasn't aware that they were doing that, but I certainly could contact their city attorneys if that's something that you're requesting to do.
Thank you.
Do you have anything else?
The other thought from the Public Safety Committee was that we wanted to have informed councilmen on this and give you time to become educated on it, had you had questions, rather than throw this at you and have a vote tonight. So that's why we delayed it until the August 7th Public Safety.
Very good. So, no action required, and without objection by the council, we'll defer any action on this matter until a future date. So, the folks that were interested in this matter, thank you for coming tonight. I'm sorry it took so long to get to the item, but we just had a lot of stuff to do, so thank you. I did miss a public hearing here, and I hope, I apologize for that, but at this time, I'll adjourn the regular meeting again and call to order a public hearing to receive public comments on the nuisance at 1058 Campbell Avenue. And again, I would ask Priscilla to reference this item to the council.
Hello again.
Hi.
A neighbor called in a complaint at 1058 Campbell Avenue. The pictures here show piles of refuse or junk, temporary shed with miscellaneous items, garbage bags stacked next to the residence, skid steer and snow blower, which are all against city code and zoning ordinances. I gave them a month to clean it up, otherwise they'd be on the hearing notice, or they'd be on the next agenda. They did do some progress, which is shown in this next photo. And I talked with the daughter, and she said that they were progressing a little bit. Since that time, there has not been much cleanup. As of July, the temporary shed is still there. It doesn't look like much has been done. So I am recommending that we abate the property with some time. I assume you guys could talk about that, but I would give them more, at least a month or more, is my recommendation.
Okay. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak to the issue of the nuisance at 1058 Campbell Avenue? Anyone at all? Okay. There's no one here, so that public hearing is closed. And what are the wishes of the council?
Mr. Mayor, I would recommend that we would make a nuisance at 1058 Campbell Avenue. It's been reoccurrence and it never gets cleaned up. We'll give them 30 days to clean it up on their own, otherwise the city will come in and do the cleaning.
Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Motion's been made. I'm sorry, go ahead. Kelsey, did you have something to add?
I think Alderman Zeman, the minutes will probably reflect this accurately, but what you're actually doing is declaring the property a nuisance, ordering the nuisance abated, and assessing the cost of the abatement as a special assessment against the property.
That's exactly what he said.
So I heard.
Further discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and motion carries. Is there anyone else in the audience that has an item that they would like adjusted before we move back to the regular sequence?
Can I ask a question? Are you folks part of Becker County Energize?
No, we are not.
No, we were here for tobacco 21, we were just meeting, so we wanted to pass some notes, so that was.
We brought quite a bit of information in order to pass it.
Okay. If you don't mind, we'll read it to you now, otherwise.
Or Dave will get it and then we'll distribute it.
And due to my advancing age, we're going to take a 5-minute break. I'm going to call the regular city council meeting back to order, and I believe we're back at the Community Development Committee, so Ron, will you just take up those items?
Okay, item 5B, consideration of the first reading of ordinance number 415, amending section 4 of the zoning ordinance relative to general district provisions. Larry, do you want to highlight that for us, please?
Yeah, this is a housekeeping item. We changed a couple of zones from R3 to RM and from R3A to R4. And in section 4, we have a portion of the ordinance where it lists all of our zoning ordinance, or all of our zoning districts. And so we need to change that so it reflects what our districts really are. So it's just housekeeping.
Okay, the committee recommends, and I so move the first reading of ordinance number 415.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to give first reading of ordinance 415, amending section 4 of the zoning ordinance relative to general district provisions. Discussion on the motion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Next item is item C, consideration of resolution approving the final plat of Village Estates, DT and Investments. Dave, you want to make some comments on that?
Actually, I have no comment on that unless someone else has a question for me. I do have one question once for.
I second it.
so.
Okay. Motion is made and seconded.
Motion is made and seconded. Discussion on the motion. Did you have a question?
Dave,
No, when you're done with that, I have one real quick question.
Okay. Do you want us to vote first and then ask it, or?
Yes,
Okay.
please.
All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries, and final plat of Village Estates is approved. Your question, Dave?
I just wondered if I can be excused from the rest of the meeting. I've got a date with a very beautiful young lady that's waiting on me tonight.
Does your wife know that?
Well, it is actually my wife for
Okay.
4 years.
Yes, you can.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you. Next item, 5D, consideration of resolution approving the final plan of Long Pine Estates, Nugget Investments. Committee recommends approval of the resolution. I so move.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded to give final plat approval to Long Pines Estate. Discussion on the motion. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Next item, item E, consideration of resolution approving the final plat of Dorf Estates. Committee recommends, and I so move.
Second. Motion is made and seconded to give final plat approval to Dorf Estates. Discussion on the motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Item G is withdrawn, so I'm finished, Your
We're
Honor.
done. So we'll move to Public Works, Jay.
Right. Item A, we discussed parking on McKinley Avenue. It sounds like we're gonna be putting some no parking signs. The road is not intended for parking, and so no actions needed.
Just for the press, what was the location on McKinley that you were having a discussion about? Kelsey?
Did we do 5G yet?
5G was withdrawn.
Withdrawn, that was
Oh, was withdrawn?
Yeah, that was withdrawn.
John, did you?
Mayor, the limits of the no parking, I think we discussed with the committee were from Freezy to Park. Thank you.
Just so the press knows what we were.
It's the first block, the Holiday Station block.
And the request was made for the EMS for accident ambulance and so forth.
All right, Jay.
So item B, discussion regarding setting a date for the Long Lake Phase 4 Utility Extension Project Open House. We're setting up an informal meeting for the next phase of the Long Lake Utility Extension for August 16th from 5:30 to 7 p.m. in the Council of Chambers. Notices will be sent out to all of those affected, so watch your mailboxes. No action necessary there also. Let's see here. Item C, consideration to a resolution accepting a report and setting a public hearing on the improvements of concrete curb, gutter approaches, and sidewalks for 2017. Do we need to speak to that, Mr. Pratt, or?
That one is Mr. Green's.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. It's just part of our sidewalk survey that we do annually to make sure trips and hazard and things in condition of approaches, sidewalks, and then requests by different places. We have quite a list put together, but it's a request for a hearing, so we can send notices out. And this is part of the process, which earlier this year, we go out for quotes on removal and putting in of concrete, asphalt, that type of thing. We use that contract to get these prices. They'll be sent a letter with the estimated cost to them.
When will that hearing be held, Brad? Next month or in September?
Next chamber. It should be in the resolution, should be next council meeting.
Brad, could you tell us what the cost is going to be for a residential house and also for a business in the church?
Yeah, and what we do with residential, our assessment policy is 50%. On residential, the city shares the cost of like a sidewalk, curb, and that at 50% of the cost to repair it. If it's a business, it's 100% of the business to carry that burden of the repair.
Okay. So do we need a motion, I think, Ron?
So Public Works Committee's had a chance
Oh,
to
I'm
look
sorry,
at
Jay.
setting this setting this public hearing and recommends approval, and I so move.
Second it.
Motion's made and seconded to accept the report and set the public hearing for the August meeting for our concrete curb gutter approaches and sidewalks for 2017. Discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
So, item D, Mr. Pratt is going to quickly go over his monthly project status report.
I had a request from Alderman Winter to be very detailed. So, I just like you guys so much, I hate to leave.
Councilman Winter's out of order, I think, Mayor.
Just a quick update on some of the things that are going on around town with different projects. Highway 10, 59 frontage road, we're still waiting for some pending pavement replacement on some of the frontage road stuff that was done in the last couple of years. Haven't heard anything from MnDOT on that recently. Westlake Drive reconstruction, multi-use trail, this is Legion to 6. In the past month, staff and some council members met with members of Becker County Commission and discussed various elements associated with that project. And the biggest thing that came out of there is Becker County is going to start working on looking at some of the right-of-way considerations and things that are associated with that project. They're going to take that lead. Staff, and I'm presuming myself, are going to work on developing a cooperative agreement with Becker County relative to that project, just trying to set up some of those parameters in terms of responsibilities and cost sharing. So,
Just a quick question, John, because
yes.
they were going to talk about that today. Does anybody on staff know whether they approved that?
I do not.
It wasn't on the agenda.
Wasn't, okay.
We'll try to keep tabs on that and keep this process moving. 2020 is going to be here quite quickly for that project. So, Long Lake Annexation Phase 4, we talked about that. We're going to have a meeting coming up. Prior to that, I'll send out a letter trying to give people some initial information, survey. For those that are listening or the press, the office has gotten several calls. We have surveyors out in that area starting to gather information and poke around. So people are wondering, we are just gathering some of the initial survey info, and we're just starting some of that preliminary design. So lots to come, and I'm sure there'll be a number of meetings, both public and one-on-one, coming up over the next few months. Long Bridge Heights, that project's basically done. We have some punch list items relative to turf that have to be taken care of there, but effectively done. Traffic signal study. This is the Randolph Road and the Highway 10 signal changes. The only update there is we're going to try to be working with MnDOT to sort of cooperatively go after some various grants that could help pay for signal improvements and potentially some of the costs associated with Randolph Road. So that's something we'll be working on over the next month or two, again, cooperatively with MnDOT. North Trunk Highway 59, this is the jail project, sewer water extension. Celine Brothers got a start out there last week. That project's going to take the rest of the construction season to get completed. A lot of work to be done yet, and there's going to just be a lot of activity out in that area. I would mention people traveling up on North 59 to slow down, pay attention. There's just a lot of activity on the shoulder, equipment running around, things like that, so be cognizant of it. Long Pine Estates, Felt has gotten a start on that also last week, so we've got some sewer going in and services for that subdivision. That work will last, we currently have a portion of Longview Drive closed with a bypass road. That'll probably last another 3 to 4 weeks, and the project will probably take another 6 to 8 weeks to probably complete in full. Landing on Little Detroit, we're working on putting plans together for that. It's a small enough project that we're able to go out and just receive quotes on that. We'll bring those quotes back to the council in August for approval, and those improvements will be completed sometime following that point this summer. So the last thing I want to mention real quick is just the update on MnDOT stuff that we're not necessarily involved in, but the roundabout is nearly complete. 3 of the 4 legs are currently open. The 4th leg, 22 west to the golf course, that should be open here in the next day or 2. So basically that project will be complete hopefully by the end of the week, according to MnDOT. And then Highway 1059, its progress, it's gonna stay about like it is right now in terms of traffic configuration, probably for the next month or so. They've got to get the bridge complete, get the concrete paving done on the eastbound lanes. Once all that's done, which is gonna be well into August, probably middle of August, then there'll be another traffic switch at that point.
Thanks, John.
Mayor, I've got a question. I don't want to make the meeting go long, but it does occur to me when you mentioned 59 and 10, and we're not going to have another council meeting before WeFest. Chief, have you had a chance to communicate with the Highway Patrol? Are we going to be doing something for traffic for WeFest? Maybe physically having people out on the highway, troopers or anything like that? Do you know anything about that?
No, not that I know, sir.
I believe, and I can follow up on this, or at least bring forward the concern, I believe they've accounted for that, and during the WeFest time, there's gonna be a suspension of some of the construction activity to help improve the traffic flow through there, but we will still be neck down, so.
I'm just suggesting if we haven't communicated to MnDOT, we may want, or Minnesota Highway Patrol, we may want to physically have some people out on the highway. I mean, even when the roads are open.
And that would be a jurisdiction of MnDOT for the
But
highway patrol, but I can pass that on, certainly.
He should be talking to them, yeah. I mean,
I think they've accounted for that, I really do, but I'll verify that.
The captain was in my office today and we were talking about issues on 59 as far as camper staging, but we didn't discuss any involvement by us in traffic direction.
Well, if you think of it, just have one more conversation with them and see if there's something we can do to help out, so.
Okay. Item E, consideration to approving the request for funds and accepting a grant of $4,642 from Becker County Energize for 2 water bottle filling stations near the rec center and public beach. And Mr. Imholt removed this from
Yeah.
consent.
Well, the reason I removed it is because I thought the group was here and I wanted to give them a little publicity, but maybe Brad can just comment about this, because this is kind of neat. We got this, we also got those bike stations.
Yeah, Becker County's Energized Committee, working with Essentia, has been very proactive in a lot of different health issues, and one of them, they had some grant money available, and we've been in discussion with them on different things. So we were fortunate enough to be able to apply for a grant to get 2 water bottle filling stations. Some of your cups and things, so many people use them, but try to fill them out of drinking fountain or anything. They're actually dispensers. We're gonna have one at the rec center, mainly because of the volume of kids, and a lot of kids carry their own water bottle with. Then the second one will go down off the Rossman bathhouse. So we kind of mix it between the beach, because a lot of people run back and forth across the beach want potable water. So that's where we're gonna put them. As soon as they come, we'll get them installed. We'll have to drain for winter, of course, but they're a very nice addition, and thanks to the guys committee.
Okay, so, thank you. Brad, we need to approve that though, Jay, so we need a motion.
Okay, I guess we had a chance to look at that, the Public Works Committee, and recommends approval, and I so move.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded to approve the request for funds and accepting a grant of $4,642 from Becker County Energize for 2 water bottle filling stations. Discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. That should be the end of the line for you.
There's one more that we've got.
Oh, yes, we've got one more thing with the,
Okay.
consideration of the request submitted from the Detroit Lakes Chamber of Commerce to provide transportation to and from WeFest, August 3rd through 5th, 2017. They just got this application in a little bit late. I don't think they made any major changes to what they've done for years and years. So Public Works recommends approval, and I so move.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the request from the Detroit Lakes Chamber of Commerce to provide transportation to and from WeFest during the festival this year. And it sounds like it's set up the same way where we block off a few spots downtown too, right, Gary?
Correct, and we won't be taking 10 and 59 as we have in years past. So when we come from Norby's, we'll actually circle back around and take Willow out to the roundabout. So we'll alleviate some of that traffic on 10 through construction.
Yeah, that helps. Okay. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Now we're gonna move, you done, Jake?
Yes, sir.
We'll move to the Finance Committee.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Yeah.
have a couple of items, but neither require action. Item 7A, we had a couple of people from the Detroit Country Club who invited us to basically look at their facilities and their capital improvement plan out at the golf course. Great invitation. The dates you see in here didn't work, so what we're proposing is going out there on July 27th at 5:30. Gloria will be sending out information on that. The council members, I'd encourage you to go out there. I'm sure it'll be a beautiful night anyway to take and review or look at the golf course needs and so forth. And so the only action here is to show up. July 27th, 5:30. Item B, we just got a heads up that the city staff is working on drafting the agreement for the American Legion campground, and no action is needed at this time.
Bruce?
Well, if we're drafting that agreement, typically they've been 5-year agreements.
Yep.
We just had a meeting last night at Westlake Drive, of which a couple of groups mentioned the campground. I'd suggest we hold off on a long-term agreement if we can. Maybe shorten it up to 2 years or something. There's a thought.
Okay, thank you, Bruce.
It's a good thought.
No action there though, Dan?
Nothing needed, Your Honor.
You don't. But you do have a couple items that you were gonna take that are on the city administrator's agenda.
Yes, thank
Correct.
you. City administrative nation items, this is under 11. There is a grant application for the airport runway expansion project that we need to approve. Kelsey, could you just talk about that for a minute?
Again, there's a resolution that we need to approve for our grant application, our 2017 Airport Improvement Program grant application to the FAA. If you saw in the packet, there's also a cover letter that goes with the grant application. We're basically requesting approximately $5.3 million worth of project cost in this next grant application. So as the project is multiple phases and multiple years, we'll be doing this for a couple of years.
Okay. So Dan?
So, thank you. It's getting late, I'm already falling. Anyway, yes, all right. So anyway, the Finance Committee did review this and recommended approval, and I so moved.
Second. Motion's made and seconded to approve a resolution authorizing the submission of a Federal Aviation Administration grant application for the ongoing airport runway expansion project. Discussion on the motion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Thank you. The next item on here, item 11B, actually needs to be broken into two motions. I apologize for that. But there's two things happening here. Kelsey, does everybody have this map?
Yeah, you should have a map of this in your packet.
So what we're looking at here first is again, this is in regards to the airport runway extension project. What we're looking at here is transferring track 3, which is the light blue shaded area here at the end of the runway, basically to the airport. Kelsey, you want to explain what's going on with that a little bit?
That's correct. There's two tracks on here, track 3 and track 17, that are owned by the city of Detroit Lakes. Track 3 will be a transfer back to the airport. Track 3 was actually transferred from the airport to the city back in 1991 for use for the wastewater facility. We're now transferring it back to the airport for the runway extension. There's no compensation involved there since that land was originally acquired through federal funds for airport purposes. So track 3 is a transfer back to the airport. That'd be one action item. The second action item is track 17. Again, that's owned by the city of Detroit Lakes, and that would be acquired by the airport. And it should have had a handout of a couple pages from the appraisal report.
Yep.
When we do these land acquisitions, there's quite a lengthy process we have to do when there's compensation involved. So there's an appraisal done and also a subsequent review of the appraisal. Both appraisals come in with a valuation of $198,000 for track 17. So my recommendation would be for the city council to approve the sale of track 17 to the Detroit Lakes Becker County Airport, which in ownership is actually joint tenants, the City of Detroit Lakes and the County of Becker will then acquire Track 17 at a recommended price of $198,000.
But again, two motions on that, so any questions before I make the first motion?
The track 3 transfer, is that involve exchange of cash then?
No.
No. No, the federal government won't pay twice for the same land, but apparently we have to, so technically speaking.
Well, on track 17, just to clarify, that's not really the city of Detroit Lakes. I mean, I understand the utility is part of the city of Detroit, but isn't it a sale to from the utility to the airport?
No.
It's in the City of Detroit Lakes' name. I think your question is, was utility funds used to originally acquire it? I think there's some truth to that, and if that's the case, I think we'll have to discuss, ultimately, does that $198,000 goes to public utilities?
Well, the reason I asked the question is because that's when the Meyer sale happened, the money went to the utilities, so I just think we need to clarify at some point.
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna make two motions,
First,
right?
yes, sir. First motion is to approve the transfer of track 3 to the airport.
Okay, is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the transfer of track 3 we're referring to from the city to the Becker County Detroit Lakes Airport. Discussion on the motion. All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Okay, thank you. The second motion then is to sell track 17 to the Detroit Lakes Becker County Airport for the appraised total acquisition market value of $198,000.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the sale of track 17 to the airport from the city for an amount of $198,000. Discussion on the motion. All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
That's all I have, Your Honor.
Okey doke, and we've got to go back because Matt's got a couple more on the Public Safety Committee agenda.
Item 8A, consideration of second reading and adoption of ordinance number 413, amending section 301 of city code, amending the closing times of city parks and city beach. I feel it's important to read this in its entirety, but I will forego that as we can all read. Chief, anything to add on this one?
Nothing new, sir.
Thank you, sir. We recommend approval of second reading.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to give second reading and adopt ordinance number 413, amending section 301 of our city code regarding closing times of the city parks and city beach. Discussion on the motion. All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, that motion carries.
Item 8C, discussion regarding setting a date to tour area police departments. There was discussion on this last night. We are meeting and going along down the road with a joint law enforcement center with the county. Now we're at the point of the nitty-gritty of what do we pay, what are they going to charge rent. Before we get into that, we realize that their rent or lease may be as high as a bond payment for our own building. We thought it would be wise on our part to extend an offer to a council member who would like to go and tour a new, updated, current police station and what that all entails and how it's laid out and what it would look like. I believe, Mr. Clem, we're looking at Fergus Falls and possibly Alexandria, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, please, I believe an email.
You'll announce when that date's going to be, or?
Yeah, we're trying to find a date.
Yeah, I believe there was an email sent out today. Yep.
Okay.
So, please respond to that, and there'll be more coming on that issue.
Okay, man, anything else?
That's it, Your Honor.
Anything on the Liquor Gambling Control Committee, Chief?
Nothing, Your Honor.
Okay. Madeline, we do have a resolution we need to approve for the Public Utilities Commission.
We do. Vernell is gone today. This is consideration to a resolution authorizing the submission of a point source implementation grant application to the Minnesota Public Facilities Authority and to authorize city officials to execute a grant agreement on behalf of the City of Detroit Lakes for the wastewater treatment facility improvements project. How is that for a mouthful? This actually has to do with the money that we were luckily enough included in the bill from the Minnesota legislature. And I'm going to call Kelsey just to give us a really quick point about how much money this is going to save us.
Yeah, you're doing great there. Again, this is the high dollar grant application. The language that the City of Detroit Lakes got for the wastewater treatment plant in the last bonding bill is 80% of our phosphorus reduction equipment. We're currently estimating that phosphorus reduction equipment costs about $15 million. So 80%, we're looking at $12 million grant application with the point source implementation grant. There's a separate pot of money, that's a separate grant application that would be eligible for $5 million. So 12 plus 5, that's how we always use the $17 million total. So, but again, the point source implementation grant, that's our high dollar one.
Okay. Thank you.
So we're moving to give consideration to that.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve a resolution authorizing the submission of the various grants for our wastewater treatment plant to the state of Minnesota, and this would be a $12 million grant at this time, right? Discussion on the motion. All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Okay, I'll have recommendations for some folks on our advisory boards and commissions. I will tell you that Mr. Daggett has decided to take some time off from the DLCCC board, so if anyone has a suggestion for me on a candidate or two who might be interested in being on the community center board, I would appreciate that input. Some of these meetings are done. We do have a street and park maintenance individual, Glenn Erickson, who's retiring after 38 years of service, and there'll be a little retirement party over at the Public Works Building on July 27th. The schedule for our budget meetings is the last item on the agenda. And is there anyone else that has anything for the council tonight?
Just as an incentive to be here, Ron's bringing steak, eggs, and hash browns to the first meeting, so.
Absolutely. I like a big breakfast when we get started with these budget meetings.
All right. Anything else, Dan?
Nothing else.
Adeline?
Nothing.
Dan? Jamie? Matt?
No, sir.
Jay? Barb? Bruce always has.
I just wanted a quick thank you to our staff, the liquor store, public works, police. I drove by at 6:30 in the morning on July 5th, and Brad's crew were out there. The good thing is they were out there picking up trash. The bad thing is I can't believe people left that much trash. Thank you to all those guys.
Yeah, good job. And don't forget, it's the Northwest Water Carnival this week. One of the highlights is the mayor riding in the parade on Sunday.
Watch out for hoses.
Yeah.
The business of this council has come to a conclusion. The meeting's adjourned.